been recorded. You will only only thing that'll be recorded will be the main screen from my end. None of you guys will actually be on the video screen itself. Right, let's go back to that share screen. Technology. Right then, so this is what we've got today. Just a quick overview, but Dave's already quite mentioned it already. Oh no, technology. What's going on? It worked earlier. Oh no. Sorry about this. Like I said, might be better to go back to this one then. Okay. Can we all see overview of the day? Oh no. Oh no. Somebody speak to me. Unmute yourself. Can you see overview of the day or not?
No. No.
No. Okay, so let's go back then. Sorry about this. I am having a little bit of a what's gone wrong there then? All right, let's try this again. Share. Okay, can you see that now?
All good.
Oh, good. Right, fantastic.
Yeah.
So I might just have to leave that up actually because I'm not quite sure what went wrong there. But okay, so we've got basically a session, a little bit quick overview now of what we do as a Western Area Coaching Program. Okay. Now this isn't by all means the Bible of what we do. It's just an overview of what we've done in the past, how we're where we are. Many of you coaches know we have Western Area training sessions, but a lot of you don't really know what's involved in it or how it all works or what our sort of philosophy and mission statements are regarding this. So first off, there's an overview of what's happening today. Obviously in a minute we'll have an open debate about the area, then we've got a little break, and then Nathan Lockie is coming in to do some strength and conditioning work, how to work with your athletes. Then we're back with some ideas of what we can do about training at home, and there's a really good discussion on concussion in judo, and that sort of brings our day to an end. So I just thought we would start with, for those who don't know, what the team and our coaching team consists of. Okay, so we have myself and Eva who sort of head up the sort of male and female sort of links, and then we have a little network of support coaches that help us officially, and there's a few that do it off the goodness of their own back as well. So Tom Reed at Bath, Charlie at Bath, Justin Allen down in the south with me, with Gary Gregory, and Matthew Hucker helps out at Bath with Tom when we need to cover. So that's the main group. Jason Parsons is our local lead for England Reds and England program. He was obviously a Western Area coach for me prior to the England program, but he's now constantly on England. And he's from Devices Judo Club, which most of you know. And we've got Adam Hall, who heads up the full-time program at Bath, and he's mainly for our interest being Western Area coaches and Western Area players. We send the eligible players who are eligible for DICE, Diploma in Sporting Excellence, towards him with the DICE program, and that's anyone from the age of 16 upwards. If you require any information on DICE and you have athletes who would like a qualification in this program, contact Adam at Bath. If you don't know his details, I can pass it on to you. Our performance results analysts is done by Justin, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. And all our sort of travel arrangements, administration, and bookings and all that sort of stuff for events and travel for events in Europe is done by Lisa Oram and Eva. So, a use of spread of skills there, and using a pool of talent that we've got at our disposal to hopefully make things work. By all means, if you have a talent that you feel that we're missing there and you want to be involved, I am always open for that discussion. Right then, let's get started. So just briefly, very quickly now, and you can unmute yourself and talk about this as well if you want to. It's not a problem, but bear in mind, it's everyone's got an opinion, and I don't want it today to turn into a sort of like a debate of who does what and who's better at saying. It's just an overview, So, and this is the BJ model of most of you would have seen it, of where we are with. And my first question to you all is where do we sit in this system? Okay, so most of us are club coaches, and we're happy being a club coach. You know, that's our little leisure time. You know, you be it or not, you little break away from home. You get a little freedom to go and do what you love doing and teaching the kids or adults and just getting involved. But Some of you like to push yourself along that ladder, and you like to get your kids up a little bit to home nations programs, and further, you know, and that's where we're sitting as an area, is between these two marks. We're trying to get area club players into their county levels, which is difficult because there isn't many counties programs running, you know, effectively, but they're doing their best, and we are all volunteers at the end of the day. And we're trying to get them. Obviously, the first port of call would be the REDS program, England Regional England Talent Development Squad. England Regional Development Squad, and then obviously onto the home nations programs, the old ETD and stuff like that, where a lot of Bradley Stoke players are, and further, should we say, on that ladder. So that's just really an overview of the pathway for a judoka. What I don't kind of like about this, it doesn't have pathways for those non-elite athletes. So the ones that want to go off into the coaching or the officiating, you just sort of like put a little badge over there. There could be offsets to this all the time. So what is our role? Our role as coaches, I mean, it's a very long topic, and for me personally, my role as a coach is to always try to be the best I can. We all know the brick walls many of us hit, setbacks, problems along the way, but I think, for me personally, just trying to be the best I can and the best delivery of what I try to do. I'm no expert, I'm no Olympian, I'm no world champion. I just feel that if I put my heart and soul to it, I can try and produce the best I can. And I strongly believe that will rub off on the kids that we teach. If you can be positive and have a good set of values and roles, that will definitely come across to the children, and more importantly, the parents that bring those kids to your club, because they will quickly see if a club is good for their child or not. So what is our role? So our role at Western Area is to try to bring along kids from their clubs, engage them and show them that what is next. You know, I mean, we all know a club judoka comes from a very grounded foundation from an excellent club coach, who will hopefully encourage their players to go to a county sessions if they run them, Western Area sessions, and then from there it's really a stepping stone into the REDS program, depending on your age. Obviously, if you're a late starter, it can be a little bit more difficult. And then hopefully we then pass them along the system, pass them along the line, and they continue their journey. And some of you are happy staying down at your club. Some of you like to follow that journey and travel with them and watch them develop and go on. And that's entirely what we do as coaches. So a coaching philosophy. Now, if you have a coaching philosophy, I don't even know if some of you do. So it would be interesting to know if some of you have coaching philosophies. You probably do, but you don't even realise you've got one. So I've already said mine is to try to always be the best I can, as basically a coaching philosophy. But how deep do we go with that the values and the etiquette within our sport? You know, do we have a mission statement for your club? Do you have the philosophy that you will always be happy to push your kids on and have an opportunity for them to be the best they can by letting them branch away from your club even? You know, there's lots of people who are within clubs that could progress by going to regional England sessions, could progress by I don't know what the right word, enjoying their journey, opening their eyes up. And that is for club coaches and judoka. I feel that the more you experience, the more you see, the more you try, the better you will become as a judoka and a person. Now, I don't want to get into the philosophy, all the philosophy angles of that, but that's another topic for another day. But as a coach, I would just say, have a little think about your philosophy, what your moral values are, what your mission statement for your coaching is, and just have a little think about where you fit in that little frame of networking kids that come into your club. You know, and it's always worth having a little bit of a read about philosophy. It sometimes crops up a few things you don't have ever thought about before. But we'll leave that there because I don't want to turn into a lecturer, a university lecture. My last little thing is, are we willing to still learn? You know, it's well, like I said, what is your role? My role is to always be the best I can, and to be the best I can never say that I know everything, and I am always willing to share ideas, listen to other people, watch other people, and maybe put that into my own formats, but I am never ever a closed book. I will always be learning, and I look and I learn every single day of my life. Funnily enough, sometimes I learn the best from watching the really tiny kids, the 3 and 4 year olds, who can't work things out, but just adapt it to how they find it, improvise it themselves. And you think, oh yeah, that works as well. So being willing to learn, and that's where we are today, because you all come here today and you're all willing to learn a little bit about strength and conditioning, a little bit about concussion in judo, and a little bit about the Western Area program. So moving on to the next one, this is my take on the pathway system. Now then, I'm not sure if you can all see this. I'm going to make a bigger version for you because I prepared this earlier. Hopefully you're not bored yet and you're not asleep. Share screen. I did hopefully get this ready for you. Yes. Oh no, wrong one. Hey, where's it gone? Oh no, it's gone. See, I am willing to learn, and learning IT and having all this prepared is not my forte. Right, we'll go back from here. We'll go back to this. See if you, oh no, that's the wrong one. That's a later program. Sorry about this, everyone. I'm sure you're going to have a good giggle about this later. Right. I'm not sure you can see that actually. Are we on the right one? Not seeing what you can see, it makes it difficult for me. Are we on the presentation again?
No, we can see you at the moment, Simon.
Okay, thank you. Right, and okay. Back to Zoom then. Okay, okay. Here we go. Share screen. Let's go back to that. Okay, cool. Right. Okay, so so this is my thing. I did this about a year ago as part of a course I did. And I just wanted to break down the program a little bit more and use the long-term player development a little bit more. And hopefully you can see this. I can email this out to people if you want it. And it's a kind of a way of looking at when kids come into judo and sort of the pathway and the journey the children and their families take, and then putting it into the physical literacy program. Now, I did this primarily for my schoolwork, for basically Ofsted, to be honest. But it's an active start, physical literacy, and grounding, well, basically to you guys, motor skills. And a lot of kids come in from a school activity instruction, and they might move into like an after-school club, and then they might join a club development, and then moving on to like a county program. And you start to have a system of learning to train, but they learn a little bit more in-depth stuff. Club development squad, you might have a system in your club where you have a recreational group and then a development squad. And you're sort of really starting to learn to train a little bit now, building the engine. So a phase used in long-term player development where you're building the athlete up, motor skills, development, muscular endurance, aerobic systems. Nothing too heavy at this level, but it's just pushing the journey in the right direction of an athlete that you feel might be going along the journey of reaching down here, basically. Competition pathway structure, events, regional squads, and this is where they sort of develop now into a Western area sort of level. Then it's the Reds, again, training to compete now, dealing with difficulty, plenty of that, because we know how difficult it is to compete and train to compete and suffer setbacks, injuries, losses. Home nation programs, England talent development program. Now this is the area it might just be a little bit out of date at the moment, because I know England and GB have just changed their systems a little bit. Then we sort of link into university level. So the Bath University, obviously I'm using Bath because it's our regional centre. Obviously there are other universities available. But Bath is our regional Western area hub, DICE, and then you have the GB trademark programs, the GB Futures Camp. So anyone at this level now is still involved in judo would be pushing towards this sort of level. GB junior squads, you're really looking at this in-depth training to win, learning to win. National squads, so now we'd be pushing them towards ONS, the ones that are around this area using the ONS system, the open national squad trainings, and hopefully be pushing for a GB squad then, and elite development squads, and then obviously the world-class performance. So when you're down here, you're more or less a full-time athlete, possibly at Warsaw. So that was my take on the pathway system. moving on. Whether you like that or not is entirely your call. So almost finished now for my little bit. This is a little quote I like because if you have a look at this, it should open your eyes a little bit to what your own philosophy might be. So this is is it wrong? Is it right? Why is it right? Why is it wrong? And when is it you actually do this? So many coaches work without any reference to a coaching process model, and ultimately base their practice on feelings, intuitions, events, and previous experiences. That is by Cushion, and he's a sports academic in sports psychology and sports physiology, not physiology, philosophy, reflection practice. Okay, coaching practice, reflection. I mean, that is just there for you to think, really. I mean, we all have ideas in our heads. Some of you write them down in depth training plans before you go on the mat. Some of you work from your head, and then you adapt, reflect on inaction and reflect on action as the sessions go ahead. During a contest, you could have a plan with your athlete before they go out the mat, strong right hand grip, kill that grip, and they come out with a different set of tactics, and you've got to reflect on the action and give new advice. So a lot of us do base coaching practice on intuition and previous experience. I sit in this camp very much, but I also sit outside this camp where I do know that we have to have a process of coaching and a process model to work towards. Otherwise, you have no structure, in my opinion. So as a Western area, we have the plan, we have the structure, and we develop. And hopefully everyone does the same in their clubs. So this is where we were. Now, everyone would have known Sandra Klinger. If you hadn't, she was a previous sort of PGA development officer, and she helped the Western area out. This is where we were with her. We had a structure in place with benchmarks and criteria, and this was the old sort of system. We had a set of requirements, such events, and some testing. Now, back in the day, we're talking 10 years ago, there was money coming into the regions through the Excel program, and we had sort of money to help Western area squads, and we had this set up because we could then offer athletes some money towards training trips. Now that's all gone, as we know, so we're kind of steering, and this is work in progress. We're steering to moving away from this old model and having a sort of engaging tier system where we have still the same philosophies basically, but we look more at a judoka ambition, judoka's determination and performance. And the reason we're sort of going with a tier 1, tier 2 system, we're not saying that nobody can ever come to Western area training, because we are an open book. We welcome anybody. But we are fully aware that there's athletes out there that are way above this level, and having an overload of training is detrimental as well. The mindset and the well-being of the athletes who are at a higher level, you know, we can't be asking them to come to Western area training on a weekly basis when they are so busy with maybe exams, A-levels, as well as jetting off with GB and England and stuff like that. So it is really having a tier system where we can't offer any money to athletes anymore because there ain't any money in the system anymore. But we really want to be able to offer and feel that everybody, whether they are a Tatum at a high level, a Lely at a high level, or a little Johnny Briggs in your club, show grade number 12, red belt, and we really want to be having something in place for everybody where we are a stepping stone along the way. And we're certainly not saying we want to take kids away from clubs. That is along it. We just want the kids in the clubs to know that as well as a club development, there is an area development that will concentrate on bringing the ambition out of a kid, showing and creating a determination, helping with their performance, and most important here, the fundamental KPI, so key performance indicators. This would have been the old technical requirements here. So as us coaches in the area, we're looking at certain things that can enhance technical skills. Now, we all have different philosophies and ways of teaching. And I'm not here sitting here by saying everybody must learn Nippon Seoi-nage. But there are key performance things that create skillful judo. Learning to have good balance, learning to be able to move properly. All these key fundamental motor skills that if kids don't pick these skills up at an early age, it's very hard to develop as they get older. We all know that the athlete development programs where we miss opportunities. Now, the best kids that come into my clubs are kids that come from baby gym, and they stand out a mile because they've done gymnastics or a form of gymnastics from the age of 3 months old, and their skill levels are advanced. But it doesn't mean to say the other kids can't catch that up. So what we intend to do is just have a grounding of basic skills that we believe are key performance indicators that help athletes. Now, I'm not going to list all those out, but it is work in progress. And as the coaches, we work together to pinpoint areas and work on them at area training. Functional development, so working at those taisabaki, the sugiyashi movements, the gripping strategies, the basic stuff that help an athlete at a middle range, at a club to area to a Reds England level. Now the Reds have a process, and they have a development strategy and a technical strategy. No point rewriting the wheel. We reinventing the wheel. We follow that program and we help bring those kids into that program because they will be tested and at those key KPIs at England Reds. Profiling and cadet profiling. And then a final thing is the performance analyst data. That sounds fancy, but basically it means we watch everybody's progress, we monitor their wins and their losses at certain events and collect the data. And that's done by Justin. So that data is done by a selection of competitions. So the area championships, area opens, home nation championships, national championships, schools championships. So not your little red belt rumbles down the club, but because there's a lot of data to collect. So that's where we are with the tier system. If anyone's on tier 1, okay, they are, or tier 2, the difference between the two is tier 1 is someone that will be engaged in the area training and will be at bar, will come to the development days, will go to the open randori days. Tier 2 is somebody that still would like to be represented in the West and feel they're part of a West team and, they are Western area, but there might be someone who is on the GB pathway, like a Lily, for instance, who is at Walsall full time. She can't nip down to Bath for a training session, and we're fully aware of that. But I would like to think that the Western area and it means something to them, and they like to be part of the team. So my final little thing. Oh, jump one. Sorry, I'm probably wattling on a little bit here, so I'm sorry. Just a couple of things there, so for you to look at. So that's basically what I've just said, 4 little processes there. The quote at the top, we'll start with a quote. So improved performance is attained through planned, coordinated and progressive process by another sports academic coaching practice person. Anyway, those are my things. And just a final thing to rip you through what is on offer at the moment. So we have our North sessions at Bath, a variety of sessions in the South with me. Eva is now doing female-only sessions. We have joint open day sessions at Bath or Kingsley, where the North and South come together. This is training opportunities again. We have development days, which would have been today, where parents and the club officials get involved. We have Pacific Randori days, which we've tried, and these are normally nearer to the national teams or British championships, or sort of like a get back to judo after Christmas. And obviously the Western area and England camp, which is held here with myself, which is now in its 11th year. Probably not happening this year, to be honest. So that's what's on offer as coaching and tournament opportunities. So we tend to have coaches at most of these events. If a club coaches can't go, we're very happy to sit in a chair and support your athletes. I have done so many times this year at different events. It's just a case of coming to ask a coach you feel you're happy to do so. We won't jump in a chair unless we're asked, because that's a little bit rude, I feel. But if your club coach can't go and you want someone to look after your players at the home nation events or at a Reds training session, we will more than willingly do that. We try to go abroad twice a year. So we have the trip to the Dutch tour and the Belgium tour. We'll try to get the Belgian tour back on track next year. Unfortunately, we won't be going this year, obviously for obvious reasons. And then we have the national teams in July. Finally, the big one for me is we've talked about this before, and we have a Japan tour on the cards for up to 12 athletes to go to Japan. Would have been next year, but obviously the Olympics have been postponed, put back a year. So we're now on 2022. It's just to let you know what's out there, okay? And the Japan tour is basically going to be a select only, obviously. And if we win the lottery, we can fund everybody to go, but that's probably unlikely. But it is something on the cards. The judo can know about this, and I just wanted to share this opportunity to let you clubs know that we will be looking to take a team to the Kodokan for the education tour. Not a randori tour, an education tour. I did this about 6 years ago with a group of athletes from the Western area. 6 of us went over with another team from Scotland and England. And it was a very good tour. It was lots of judo opportunities, lots of things to do culturally. And it's a 10-day tour, and we'll be based at the Kodokan. A fantastic opportunity and something to start saving for. So that's the end of my sort of outline on the Western area coaching program and our team. I hope you found that a little bit interesting. I know most of the time a lot of people have no idea what we are about. I just wanted to use this opportunity to explain where we are with that system. So I am now going to open up for any questions for a couple of minutes. If you have any questions, feel free to chuck one at me. I know Eva is here as well, so she might be able to talk about the female and the tier system. Eva has been working on the tier system for me. If you don't have any questions, we'll just pass straight over to Dave. He's going to run the next bit.
I think first I'd just like to say thanks for that, Simon. Informative thing. I'm going to put Bob Kubath and Jim McKenzie on the spot here. They're our technical directors for Army coaching and services coaching, and just ask them to give a quick minute, one of them, to explain what we're doing on the Army pathway, just so the Western area can get a flavour of what it's like. Jim, Bob, would you like to comment?
Yeah, with the Army Judo, we have quite a lot of skills courses run at the Army School of Physical Training in Aldershot. That's a week-long course, and you know, there's very few people get week courses and get paid for it. So we're very lucky like that. Then we have coaching courses that come to the school. BGA Level 1 is run by BGA Futures City, who does an excellent job. And then, of course, we've got our secretary, Major Jim Compton, who actually, you know, organises all the necessary stuff like Simon was doing there. And then there's Dave, who's now a martial arts chap, who I hope will be working quite and get us going with the Armed Sports Control Board, get some more money. That's about it, really, on my side.
Yeah, thanks. Have you got anything to add, Bob? No. Okay. So yeah, just so on the Army side of it, that's that side from Jim. We've got John Thacker online as well, who's the Royal Navy rep. John, have you got anything to comment?
Hi, sorry, I was just finding the button there. Not used to this zoom in thing. Yeah, no, not really. We tend to tag on with Jim's course where we can. Obviously, we're much more deployed, but excitingly, we've actually got a permanent judo mat on HMS Prince of Wales now. So that'll be the first one at sea since I had one many years ago on the Bulwark and Diomede. So other than that, we tend to tie into the clubs in a lot in the Western area, to be honest. So thank you.
Great stuff. Thanks. Yeah, and so I think the thing from this meeting today is to get the coaches from the civilian and the military communities to work better together. We have got people who are based in the Western area who would be keen to come along to the sessions that Simon's running, if that's possible. And then similarly, when wearing our skills and coaching courses, we could get some guest coaches down to us to see what we're doing and maybe give a session. And I think that would be good and benefit for everybody else. If there's no more questions on session one, I'd just like to introduce Andy Scott, who's just joined us, the chairman.
Let's give everybody a chance for a question.
Yeah,
Dave, sorry. Could I just add something on Army Judo, please?
Yep, of course. Sorry, Jim, I didn't see you there, mate.
So I'm Jim Clance. I'm the Secretary of Army Judo. And actually, it's everybody else that's doing all the work. I just sort of follow up with some of the paperwork when I can be bothered. But actually, in terms of Army Judo, there's an awful lot going on when we are back on the mat. So we have been working with the BJA to look at where we can fit in with the development squad, particularly in terms of development of our coaches, but also some of our athletes, both in terms of, sort of lifestyle, nutrition, as well as then sort of technical skills on the mat. We are absolutely looking to get more opportunities to train with local clubs. One of the biggest issues that we have is that because our people are so transitory, we really need to be able to get to train wherever it is we are at the time, at whatever time. So our guys get used really to going around and visiting a lot of clubs wherever they are. And then there are a few other opportunities that we are looking to do. So I know with Bath, last year, for example, we'd started off running a small competition where we're trying to get a number of areas, including the Army area, together to compete for a few cups and whatever else. We're just really looking at any opportunity we can to get training time in, because that's the one thing that we do tend to miss is training time. We're always up for competing, but training is the one issue that we have.
Thanks, Jim.
Simon, guys, can I jump in just for a second, please?
Yeah, sure. It's Gary.
I'm Gary. I'm based in Northern Ireland. I'm a former Royal Marine, and I was formerly the national coach for the Royal Navy Royal Marines, as a good long time ago. John Flecker might remember. I've got a permanent judo facility. It's the only one in Northern Ireland. So any forces personnel that are based or travel to Northern Ireland get my details from Simon, and they're welcome to the dojo here. I'm coaching full time, so they can come whenever they like.
Gary, whereabouts is your dojo?
I'm sorry?
Whereabouts is your dojo?
It's Coleraine on the north coast.
Yeah.
Right next to the big stones.
Yeah, it's about a 20-minute drive from the Foyle Arena, which is where the Northern Ireland Open is. That's the venue there usually. So about 20 minutes away from there.
That's good.
So that would do Western area as well, Gary?
Absolutely.
Okay?
Anybody.
Brilliant.
When Simon's club go to the Northern Ireland Open, they tend to stay in Coleraine, and Simon scrounges a Guinness off me, and we can. But you're all, everybody's welcome here. Absolutely. I was a Devon County coach, so I have a real affinity with Forces Judo and the West of England.
Thanks, Gary.
Cool. Okay, so if there's no other questions about the Western area stuff, everybody's happy. So
Simon, there's one question on the chat about kata.
Okay.
And I'd like to bring Leah Jones in, who's obviously joined us today. The question on kata was, where does kata comp feature in our roadmap? We need to realise that only 1 in 10 players from any club will want to compete in Shia. Leah, could you jump in on that one?
Yeah, sure. So I lead the kata group for the BJA. It reports into the National Promotions Commission. So Andrew Hafner is sort of the BJA board director who takes it forward, and I work very closely with Dave Horton-Jones. We've got a strong focus from the Northern Home Counties, and Duncan Paul Jordan and Duncan Kinnear, who some of you might know from Wales. We're trying to sort of look at kata from sort of 2 aspects, really. Not so much about pure kata competition, but that is available as the path one, but also as an integral part of improving people's judo. It's a means of training. It's just like randori, it's just like Uchikomi. If you're doing nage no kata, you're doing sort of 30 ippon throws in that practice, really. So it's about getting kata as part of judo, in much the same way as sort of karate people think about kata as a fundamental part of their art. We're trying to hold a number of courses. Of course, we've been torpedoed a little by sort of the public health crisis we've got at the moment. We're working with Yoshihiko Yura, who is a Kodokan 8th Dan, who's stationed in the Japanese embassy in Iceland. We invite him over to the UK once a year, where he can sort of do master classes, training the trainers. We're looking to create opportunities for everybody who wants to do an exam in kata. You can now take exams in all the Kodokan kata, and before you were limited only to nage no kata and katame no kata. If you want to progress to the higher grades, 6th Dan you will see is in the control of the BJA, if you want to go to 7th dan and above, it's in the space of the EJU and the IJF, and they ask for demonstrated competence in all the judo kata. We need to create that opportunity space for people here in the UK. At the moment, you can demonstrate that competence through course attendance certificates. When we've upskilled the UK judo community, we will be looking to have performance certificates as demonstration as well. So I'm based in sort of the Hampshire area, pretty close to Aldershot, and worked with sort of Bob Kubath, who runs some courses here in that part of the country. But Jeremy Robinson, I think, is one of the focal people for kata in the West, if I remember. So I lived in Bath for 15 years, and Jeremy was, I think he was a world champion in kata competition, and he's very knowledgeable. So the opportunity is there. You perhaps need to go and hunt it out. There's a bigger kata focus on the BJA website. Lots of information is there. So it's there if you can find it. So hopefully that's helpful.
Right,
Yeah,
thank
thanks.
you, Lou.
We regularly go to see Mr. Jordan in Buckinghamshire and Amersham, and Mr. Hafner up in Samurai. But yeah, thank you for that reply.
Thank you.
The Western area did, well, I'm not quite sure, to be honest. Maybe Andy Scott can answer this one later. We did have Steve Chappell, who was the area kata coach, and we also had an inclusion coach as well with Pete. That's your guy from West Bradley Stoke, isn't it?
Steve Westlake.
Yeah, Pete Westlake. So that's for me personally, I focus on the performance level, but I'm fully aware that clubs are full of kids that don't want performance, and that's where philosophy might fit into your coaching practices. But Adam Hall has picked up a question about funding. Obviously, that might be a question that we put to the chairs and vice chairs next. If Andy and Dave want to read that question, I'll leave you to answer that. But Dave, I'm happy if you want to move on to.
Yeah, let's move on. We're a bit over time, but that was good, useful to get people interacting. That's really good. What we're going to do now then on this one is just look at sort of club development, what's happening in the Western area. I'm going to ask Andy to take the lead just to give an update where we are, and then I'll fill in the gaps. And then we'll have a session again at the end. If anyone's got any questions or any concerns, either put them in the chat or put your hand up and ask the question, really. So Andy, do you want to kick off, please? Just what's going on?
Yeah, morning everybody. Andy Scott, if you don't know me, Andy Scott, West Area Chair. What's happening? Right, what's happening is that Simon and his team and others are doing a great job keeping judo alive by using Zoom, running their sessions, and keeping everybody informed. I'm very grateful to Simon and his team. As we look to come out of lockdown, we're very much dependent on the direction that the BJA want to take and what we're allowed to do in the government guidelines. BJA have been working very hard on a policy to get us out of lockdown and looking at funding to help clubs do a restart after lockdown. Now, that's still ongoing. All the club coaches now should have had a questionnaire from the BJA asking what they need to help them out of lockdown, and that will develop, or that information will be used to develop the policy for the BJA. So, although it's not looking particularly positive that everyone's going to be back on the mat soon and having competitions and everything else, at least the BJA are looking towards that happening in a safe way. So, Dave Campion and I will
okay.
Any questions you have, or Dave got some more filling to do.
Yeah, so just so you're aware, I mean, I took over the vice chair post last year. I was still full-time in the army, so I haven't been able to get involved too much until about this April, when Andy and Simon have sort of engaged with me a bit more. Just to give you an update, on what things are happening. We had an executive committee meeting a week or so ago, again via Zoom, which went really well. Myself and Pete Salter and Raz Hopkins are looking at the Constitution now. Going to do a review on that, make sure it bring it up to date. It's a bit sort of archaic in its wording and things. We recognise that BGA is still charging to go on to do gradings, which is an issue because some people couldn't go via the dojo to do it. So Simon kindly said that if you go and use the old online registration way of doing it, that will make things a bit easier. I'm going to draft up a business manager term of reference job specification. If anybody's interested in helping out in that way, it will be a voluntary role, I'm afraid, because there's not much money about. But looking at our businesses, looking at our suppliers, looking at how we're going to get kit and looking at some sort of plan and helping out. If anybody's got anybody they know who's got any business studies experience or as a student or something like that, then get them to get in touch with me and we can work on a job spec together and hopefully get someone on the team. We're also looking at doing some tracksuits. I know we're getting some costings on that. And then Andy's already mentioned that the rebates that could be coming in. There's not a lot going on, as you're probably aware. So financially, there's not much activity going in and out at the minute. There are funds available, but they're allocated to different things, and our treasurer's keeping on top of everything there. And we've still got the £2,000 bond, as well as the thing the money that's in the account. And I'm just trying to look down my list of notes that I took from the meeting. Yeah, so area competitions, as we've mentioned, none's happening for the immediate future. We'll take direction from the NGB. We see there's a need to train other officials. Andy's kindly volunteered to keep on the coordination role for officials for the foreseeable future, which is really great and good to have them on board. And just so people are aware, the coaches are aware that the next AGM will be on the 27th of June at 13:30. And that information will be pushed out by the secretary in due course. And if anybody's got anything for the newsletter, can they get that in for the 24th of May, please, so that we can have a decent update in the newsletter. I'm just going to bring in well, I won't bring in. I'll mention about what we're doing on the army side, on the coaching side of things. So we've now got a full list of our coaches. We've got 61 registered coaches. Now registered, I mean they've actually done a UKCC level 1, 2 or 3 course, of which unfortunately there's only 13 still in date. And my job really on that now is to reinvigorate that with Jim McKenzie. So 13 in date. We've got 5 level 1s, 5 level 2s and 3 level 3s available. And again, I'm sure we can engage with Western area to help out with some coaching sessions or invite you to some of our sessions. As Jim quite rightly mentioned, it's getting access to mat areas. The problem in the army is that unless you've got a qualified coach on station, you can't do judo unless you go out to a civilian club. So it's getting an understanding of where these clubs are across the UK rather than just Western area and pointing our guys in the right direction. But we have got a coaching strategy now. We've got funding in line to get our guys on the first aid courses, the safeguarding course and things. And I don't know if Brett's online. Brett, are you online? Could you add a few words about safeguarding and the courses that you're offering? Brett, are you there? Is your mic working?
Yeah, I've just managed to unmute. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, cheers, mate. Give us a quick minute, mate.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've run 15 virtual safeguarding protecting children workshops across a number of sports, and I'm quite, I'm prepared to put an offer together for the Western region for June with a 10% discount for all the coaches attending today and any other coaches. So I know some of you have attended before. But that means you can access it wherever you are, like you're doing today, and that gives you a chance to connect back to your clubs, get back on the mat as quickly as you can. But once we get back to some sort of more normality, sort of the medical courses that we run as well, with all the defibrillators, the anaphylaxis training will come back in. We're not allowed to train at the minute, we're only allowed to train medical staff. In what we're currently doing, but Dave's got all my details at Wessex Coach Education and Lifeline Training, and we can support you with any club requirements or regional requirements if you've got any questions. But just fire them through in the chat box, so it's to Brett Barder, and then I can answer those as we go through.
Cheers, Brett. And then on the military side, we've got funding in line now. We're going to jack up a course with Brett to get everybody on at the same time. Once I define who actually wants to keep coaching, and that's the same Dan and John for the RAF and Navy. So if you've got any coaches who need to do their safeguarding, get your details to me. and we'll jack up a session with Brett for the military and the Western area, and just get it all done in a one. This is a great time. I mean, every cloud's got a silver lining. The COVID's given us a great time now to take stock and actually get on these courses. The BJA have relaxed their rules where you don't have to do a physical course every 3 years or every second time round. You can do online courses for both first aid and safeguarding, and DBS can all be done online now. So let's take advantage of that and get ourselves ready for when the big thumbs up comes and we can get back on the mat. So that's all I've got. I'm going to open the floor now. We've got about 15 minutes before we have a break. Just if anybody's got any sort of issues, concerns with Western area, we'll do that first, and then the military can chip in if they've got any dramas that they want to put to myself or Jim Crompton. So really, it's a chance to tell us what's going on at club level. Tell us if we're aligned, the area's aligned to what you're thinking, and just put some points across. If you want to do it anonymously, just send myself or Simon a private chat, and we'll pick that up later. But the floor is yours, everybody.
Just unmute yourself, and if you maybe do a little reaction hand, and then we can come to you, or put it in the chat, and then we can open up your chat rather than 50 people trying at the same time. Who wants to go first?
Can you hear me, Simon? Hello, Simon.
Hello, Pete Salter, I believe, and then Adam Hall.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Can I just ask Andy a question?
Yeah.
Morning, Andy.
Morning, Peter.
Are you okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Andy, I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything like that, but
Of course you're not.
pardon?
Of course you're not.
No, absolutely not. I know. I was just wondering. Mine's a general question, really, which is at the back of all our minds. You know, the return to dojo. I know you talked to head office. You know, is there any sort of inkling at all of, you know, are they drawing up a plan? Are they submitting a plan to put to UK Sport, Sport England, whatever the process is or will be? I mean, any sort of any news whatsoever? And if you can't, you can't. I'm not, you know.
I do know that they are working on a plan, and they are working at where the funding is going to come from. And if that, there might be a need to divert our rebates to part funding. But until their plan comes out, how the return to dojo is going to happen, I honestly don't know. But I know they're working closely with English Sport and UK Sport, and everything hinges on the government's forward plan.
Yeah, okay. I was just wondering if there was anything sort of specific, or
no,
so we're still way out in the future sometime.
Yeah. I mean, this questionnaire that they sent out is obviously, you know, as I said, that is an aid to forming the policy of how we're going to get back to the dojo and help the people who need the help. But you know, I know it's ongoing because we're not letting them rest. There is the English area chairman have a working group within themselves that are dealing directly with the BJA.
Okay. Thanks for that, Andy.
Okay.
Just to Peter, we will be discussing a little bit more in depth on that in the session later in the session about the return to in lockdown.
Oh, okay.
So it is in the programme. Adam Hall had a question. He had his little hand up.
Cheers, Simon. Hi, everyone. There was two things, really. The first one about DICE. Feel free to contact me, but Tom Reed, who's a performance coach for Judo at Team Bath, he's the lead for DICE now, so you can contact either of us, but Tom will probably have more update information. The next question was around when you say, like, we haven't got as much money coming in as an area, is there any scope for us to look at trying to earn money as an area? So just a starting point, maybe having some like area squad training that's open to sort of seniors and maybe like all the cadets. to just sort of meet up across the area sort of once every couple of months or something. Everyone pays a mat fee and technical, but mainly just there for randori. Would people be interested in that?
It was one of the questions that was asked on our last one. What are we doing about seniors? And I don't know, Simon, have you got a plan for the seniors yet?
It's a question I get asked all the time about senior coaching sessions, and we tend to not run Pacific senior sessions. The ones that are sort of competing, we sort of send towards to Bath basically on the sessions. And then there's some other clubs that have got senior sessions like Diane White, but that's more masters end. We do regular sessions. We do tend to charge a very small £5 mat fee for sessions, but I think, and Lisa or a better one to answer this, the money we raise really from sessions does tend to go back towards higher costs a lot for venues. We do try to get free venues or at least subsidised venues, and I know some of the venues we use are very good at relaxing that sort of charge. Obviously, there's a little charge for some coaching fees, but also what people aren't aware of, we do go abroad. Holland last year, and the area put £2,000 into that trip for all our 20 pre-cadets and cadets who went on that trip. So that the area did put £2,000 into that. So there was a little bit of money there, and it was used. But to create more of an income through coaching sessions, that's maybe where Dave Campy comes in with his business model plan. It might be a case that mat fees are increased, maybe. I don't know. That's a debate for the executive board. I feel myself personally. Senior sessions might bring in a bit of income because obviously seniors have got a wage and they might be able to afford an area session. I'm very keen to try and put senior sessions on, or masters sessions. I did speak to Diane recently about a masters get-together session where they might have a weekend away somewhere and have a couple of days training and a bit of a social gathering after lockdown as a bit of a way of re-engaging, for instance. And Diane was quite keen to sort of work with me on that. And I've just seen Kylie and Mark smiling their heads off there. So they'll be right up for that one, I think. But yeah, so it's just ideas all the time. And I'm fully aware that people have got ideas. So please share. If you've got ideas, please come forward.
This is why we need a business manager.
Yes.
Jim Crompton, I know in the past we've held master classes at Aldershot where we've got coaches to come to us and we pay them a small fee. What's your thoughts on that? For inviting some of the Western area elite players to come down and give a session and maybe generate some funds for the Western area?
So more than happy. We're in a really fortunate position in terms of last year we were able to agree a relatively healthy budget for this year in terms of particularly in terms of support to coaching. So we do have money in the pot to be able to train and develop our coaches, and also with our links into directly into sort of the BJA development squads. It means that we are looking to see if we can get some of the higher quality players through as well to really test some of our down grades. So absolutely, there is definitely capacity. There is definitely space for us to use coaches and a variety of coaches. But I know Kat has already been mentioned. That's one thing I know Jim McKenzie is keen on, but actually I feel we kind of need a little bit more support if we're going to do that and just look at really broadening the offer that we have across Army Judo.
Thanks, Jim.
Can I say something?
Yes, Peter.
Yeah, so that's great, trying to raise money from people coming train and so on and so forth. I think in some ways the Western area should look at more ways to contact more of the clubs that aren't on this system and try and find out what they need from the Western area to encourage them to come out to Western area events and compete and train, because I think Simon gave me some stats on how many players were in the BJ in the Western area. I was shocked because I thought it was a far fewer number. And I think that's the big issue. The people here usually know what's going on. But I think that, for instance, I worked closely with the Welsh judo squad for the last 10 years. And 10 years ago, their team travelled with Bradley Stoke to Europe. Now the Welsh squad are flying along because they looked inside their area and went after their clubs and the local coaches.
I think to be fair, Pete, this forum's been set up today for exactly that reason. The invite's gone out to all the clubs, to all the Western area. We've used MailChimp, everything, to get as many people as you can involved with this, so that they can come along and see what we're doing and try and work out a way forward. So it's an open door here. I think the area want the clubs to get involved, but you can't lead a horse to water, can you? It's difficult, and maybe it's the newsletter, maybe it's another form of communication.
No,
But,
I think personally, it's getting someone who runs a club successfully, like Ross from Drake, who I feel has done a fantastic job. He knows all about judo and he knows all about management. And the way he runs Drake Judo Club has been a fantastic setup and the way he's done it. And I think we need to get someone on that job and contact those coaches. And yes, they ignore this, because I spoke to quite a few people regarding getting onto this and having their say, but they feel it's easier just not to bother. Whereas the Western area used to have more numbers competing at competitions, like the teams. For instance, if you have the teams, maybe they want to come because if there was a lower level competition within the competition, all these sort of things, and maybe change the teams where you are back to the old format where you have more players involved, so that we can start to run area competitions with more process. When I was a kid and I fought for the West, or got in the West squad, it was a massive thing, especially when you went to school and all that sort of thing. It seems to have faded, and I think we can bring it back. There's no problem at all. We just need to go and approach these coaches, and because we've got the information of where they are, and maybe just give them a call.
Can I say something, Dave, if that's all right?
Yeah, jump in.
Yeah, just to kind of pick up on what Pete said, I think really we need to look at, I know you mentioned obviously you're looking at rewriting the constitution and things, but I think overall the Western area is really suffering. It seems to be a collection of kind of individuals rather than as one team. I mean, a big part of that, especially down this way, I mean Simon does a wonderful job, absolutely fantastic, but we don't really have any engagement from the Western area. I mean, what is the area to a small club, you know, in Cornwall? What does the area represent? What do they need it for? And I think really, like you say, you sent out MailChimp and Facebook invites and all of that. But the reality is, you know, some of these clubs are run by, you know, either older people or people that don't engage that way. And I think the West really need to send a message to the whole area and say, look, we realise you're here. What can we do for you? As opposed to what the clubs do for the area, what can the area do for the clubs? I mean, you know, things like, for example, at the moment, training is split into South and North for obvious reasons. But the joint sessions that Simon and Adam have run are fantastic. You know, you're going to get a huge collection of players there. It is going to take time, but I think overall, we just need to, I think, move together as one. And I think at the moment, obviously, different sized clubs, you know, my club, Simon's club, and Pete's club, you know, are of a different size. And then you tend to start thinking inwardly as opposed to outwardly. Does that make sense? Like you start thinking, well, you know, I mean, I openly admit, I take my players to Welsh training sessions because it's 2 hours away and there's 80 players there, you know. And I understand, you know, well, if you don't go to the West sessions, then how are people going to come along? But it's still very difficult when attendance at those sessions is so low. You know, it's very hard to sell to parents to ask them to drive to wherever, you know, pay a £5 and then basically have, you know, a session with all the kids from their own club. So I think we just almost like an ideas forum, and I appreciate this is what this is, but I think, you know, certain people have ideas and they're reluctant to say anything, but I just think we need a plan really, because otherwise I can just see this getting more and more fractured and more people saying, well, you know, I'm going to do my own thing now and I'm not really interested in what the area is offering, and I think that's worrying. I mean, some areas are doing very well, some areas are not. You know, so anyway, I could waffle on for another couple of hours, but
no, fair comment, Ross, and we'll take that on board. And I think maybe, Andy, something in the newsletter before we push it out. I don't know what the reach of that is, whether people in these minor clubs look at the newsletter. I don't know.
I think the newsletter is outdated.
Yeah, okay.
I think the newsletter is outdated, and it goes to the secretary or one person in the club. I don't, you know, Simon does a fantastic job. If Simon ever decided to move on, we got a massive problem because he does so much. Like Ross said about the Western area, we don't see them from day to day. Even in this time of where we've been off the mat and no one's really got a lot to do. The actual people who make the decisions in the Western area have been very silent on the West. But Simon, you can see that Simon is constantly trying to get it re-energized. And like Ross said about the sessions, yeah, we have players go to the Welsh. We have players go wherever they can do, because my players, they know that I want them to be the best they can be, so they can go wherever they want to be to become the best player. So they will go places where they feel will help them. So if the West has got a great session and they know it's going to be a good session, they'll be on it. If they feel that it's going to be not of any use to them, of course they won't turn up, because as far as I'm concerned, the parents make the decisions, not the coaches. So when the parents take their players to somewhere, if the player's good, if the training's good, they will return. If it doesn't, then financially it doesn't happen. So what Ross is saying is very important, and we're a massive area, and we need to find out where. Well, I know the West has got all the information, but I think that people respond from just a phone call, and to just personally ask them, you know, what can we do for you? How can we help you? And I think you will draw a lot more people in.
Okay, thanks, Pete. I get that.
Dave, sorry, can I just say about the newsletter? The newsletter, a paper copy, goes to every single club, and that was done because there are still some clubs run by people that aren't online.
Yeah.
But Rich Cleve emails it to every single email address that he's got, which is it's quite a few people. So if anybody wanted it emailed, they just need to send their email address to Rich Cleve, and also it goes onto the Western Area Facebook page where there are quite a few people that can link into it there.
Yeah, so I think we need to put something in there about what the area can offer the clubs now. Let's try and get the clubs on board. We're all wanting to do what's best. I think it's got to be bottom up. People have got to want to be involved, as Pete's quite rightly pointed out. But I think for a matter of time, we'll just draw stumps on that one now. We'll take a short break for 10 minutes because the next presentation is starting at 11:20. And then we might be able to come back to this.
Just hold.
Yeah.
Can we just hold on a minute? I just want to make sure we are. We do need to make sure everyone, I know this is slightly off piste a little bit, but when you're not speaking, can you keep your camera muted? I know I can mute everybody personally, but it does create some interference. So if you want to speak, unmute. If you're not speaking, please make sure you mute. Otherwise, I'll have to mute everybody. Then it makes it my job harder to find your picture to unmute you when you want to talk. I just want to throw back a few things from some of the suggestions that we talked about. You know, I thanks for your comments, Pete and Ross, and I do my best, and it goes back to my point at the beginning. But there are areas for improvement, and you'll be foolish to think everything's correct for every area. My personal opinion is we must try and have engage the younger age bands more in sort of fun, creative judo events. Taking away that high pressure situation from competition. I know it's very difficult with numbers in judo, but just to give you the facts, BJA membership for the Western area is 2,057 licensed members. 2,057 licensed members as of 30th of March. And that is, as far as, and as of the 30th of March, there's 62 BJA licensed clubs in the Western area. Now, I know not every club runs a club for the competitions, and I know recreational judo is where the bulk of the membership will be. But there are recreational form of events I feel that we could be creative doing. I love the under-8 events. The biggest problem I see as a judo, I'm a PE teacher foremost and sports coach, is I go to other events with my school with other sports, and you go for 2 or 3 hours. You go to a judo event, you spend 10 hours there, and it is not good for a parent of an 8-year-old, particularly when you have to then be told you have to wait for your medal to the end of the day. That really needs to go at every level across the British judo. I'm not singling out any county in particular for that, but that I go to table tennis events, gymnastic events with my school kids here, and I'm there a couple of hours and I'm gone, and that is better for low level judo. You turn up at a gymnastics competition. I take my team to a gymnastics competition. They say their vault is at 11:47. It's at 11:47. 11:57. They're gone. They've had their medal certificate. It's over. I know judo is a lot different to gymnastics, but there has to be some thinking about how we can make competitions efficient for parents who have a busy lifestyle of their own with maybe 2 or 3 kids who are doing different sports. So that's a big area I feel we need to work on. Bringing training together for a higher level. We can only offer the training that we can put together as volunteers. We hope we can offer everything. Having Tom on board now at Bath and Adam being more creative, that does help the north side a little bit more with what Jason had originally started. So well done to those 3. We do our best in the south, but like Ross said, the area is so massive. To get people travelling in an evening on school nights is almost impossible. We do our best. We're always open to suggestions and ideas, and we always try things. That's why we're trying now the female sessions with Eva. We're trying to get a little bit more engaged with the masters with Diane. So it's just an ongoing process of trying to find ways to do it. But if we're going to engage with clubs at a younger level in the area, the competition structure has to be safe, efficient, and memorable. Those are the 3 things that kids love. You have to create memories for kids and parents. If parents are happy, kids are happy, parents will come back to judo.
Simon, can I come in? Is that all right?
Yeah.
You raised good points about sessions, but again, I think communication is really the key. As Pete said, I think the problem is the area executive meets, however many times. And yes, although, I couldn't tell you what they discussed. I mean, I'm sure the minutes are available, but things like, Eva's female session, which was great. Kylie already had a female, so this is nothing against Eva, but Kylie already had a very successful female session that was already set up. And surely the easiest thing would have been to roll that into an area session. She gets players from Somerset, from Cornwall, etc. Because all that then did was kind of divide the numbers. And again, I know you have tried this yourself, talking to different people, but I think possibly a coaches forum, what we're doing now, this is because of coronavirus, but in reality, this should be something that we're doing fairly regular, monthly even, and actually, sharing these ideas and saying, well, to go to finance, you guys were bouncing finance ideas around. The answer to finance for the Western area is easy. Engage a company that will apply for funding on your behalf. Yes, you have to pay them like we did. So we got a £10,000 grant from Sport England, and we had to pay the company that applied for that £1,000. So the difference is get nothing or get £9,000 worth of that. That's what we need to do. We need to engage in a company that will apply for all the relevant funding, because as an area, we can apply for funding. It's not only coaches. The area would benefit from it more. We could pay to have master classes come in. They will give you funding for that. We could pay certainly towards your Japan trips, and even hopefully subsidize players to go to the John Davis Western Area camp, because again, who wouldn't want to send their player to that? But these are all ideas, and I think that communication, very often, we'll bump into other coaches and go, oh yeah, I've had this idea, and oh, the area doesn't want to listen to me. Well, have you said anything? Have you done anything? I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of saying, oh, we should be doing this, we should be doing that. But if you don't tell anyone, and you don't engage, then it's not going to happen. So yeah, look, I agree with you. The area is doing a lot in terms of, like you say, female sessions, joint Western area days, stuff outside the box. But I just feel that we need to be communicating a lot more than we currently are. You know, at the moment, the only time I'm speaking to other coaches is if I bump into them at a competition, and then it's, you know, only usually you, Pete, and a few others, or if I happen to message them. So I just think perhaps moving forward, we could possibly arrange something like this as a more regular event. I don't know what anyone else thinks.
I think that's spot on. That is absolutely spot on. Rather than the meet in the area, having a meeting, which most of us don't know what's going on really. Well, it needs everyone's involvement, or coaches who are interested in getting involved and don't want to see the Western area die. Basically, that's my thoughts on it.
It'd be great to create some like little workshop forum groups, a coaches one, development one. So maybe that's something we could go back, talk with Andy and Dave.
Yeah, the Western Area Day you did, Simon, where you did like workshops and all of that. I mean, that was great. From obviously, unfortunately, I couldn't make it, but you know, the people who went there said that was fantastic, and that's the sort of thing that it could extend to, not only a forum to discuss ideas, but a forum to that, because again, who's been in a position where something's happened and they've not heard about it? You know, whether it's, I don't know, you know, I mean, you know, the area seminar and area downgradings, for example, the communication on those is not brilliant. You know, I mean, we've got 7 or 8 brown belts that would go to those, and then they just seem to happen. And I'm not saying that's anyone's fault, but yeah, I really do think that if we can improve communication and start talking to each other, it's going to be a lot better moving forward. Because like Pete says, I think the problem is the further we get away, and the further the executive and the Western area is ostracised from the clubs, it's going to be so much harder to pull everybody back in.
You know, the grading, for years, the gradings, our downgrades always went and graded everywhere else in the West, because the communication, because the organisation wasn't efficient. And this is what Simon was saying about efficiency. When we run our local club thing, we're finished by 12 o'clock. When you go to Europe, they tell you roughly what time you're going to be fighting. The efficiency, the Eastern area used to be so efficient at running competitions. The Welsh are now efficient. They worked before, now they're efficient. They've changed things. And the world travels faster. Everyone is doing a million things. I can't say I'm going to go down to Kingsley on a day out, because I've got to get it past my wife, because I've been around the world traveling with my judo players. So Zoom sessions or things like this where we can all talk and exchange views would be fantastic, because we can find a time where we can sit down and sort it out.
Yeah, I think with Zoom, now people have got used to it, it is definitely a way forward. There is an option in called breakout rooms in Zoom, where you could then go off to little forums, have a chat, and then come back together. So we were just going to mute that, because that's annoying me. So there is opportunities here, I think, and I'll be very happy to coordinate and form a coaches forum with coaches that are willing to discuss things, and then take those ideas back to the area chairman and committee to discuss in future. I personally use Microsoft Sway as a newsletter. I find that system much more digital.
But why can't the area chairman and that get on the Zoom? Why does it have to be taken back into the dark hole and wherever is being decided and then brought back? You know, it's just, you know, it should just be open and discussion. You know, it seems like we've got to take it back to this higher power that are hidden away and no one knows what they're doing. You know, and that's not having a go at anyone at all. But why not? Everyone can get on the Zoom. Andy's here, Dave's here, Pete Salter's here. Everyone can be on the Zoom. Everyone can discuss it, and we don't have to change the story or change the version. Everyone would have heard their part and can say their part.
I agree, and I would like to think if we created a forum for coaching, that the right people would sit on that as well, so we wouldn't have to keep bouncing emails back and forward and that which slows processes down. So yes, I think we could definitely move on that. Pete, Ross.
Yeah, I mean, think so. We're preaching to the converted here. The people who are on here want to be on here, and will be on here for verbatim, whether it's on a Zoom, whether it's on a newsletter, wherever. We're all on side. It's the others we need to then engage with now. And I get that the communication plan needs to be better, and we'll work on that. I think it's time just to have a quick 5-minute break just to recharge your coffee cups. We can come back to this subject in session 4 when we start talking about lockdown, and we should have a bit of time at the end of that. So have a think about what we've said. Grab yourself a brew. And then if you can come back for past, and Nathan will kick on with the strength and conditioning presentation.
Sorry guys, that's me for the day. I'm going to have to leave the session. We have a funeral to prepare for. Okay, so
okay, Andy, good luck. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Sorry to hear that, Andy.
Okay, not a problem. We'll sort it. I'm just glad that it's over.
Cheers, Andy. Thanks, mate.
Bye, Anne.
Simon, can I try and get my PowerPoint app? Is that all right, mate?
Yeah, who am I speaking to? Nathan.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Nathan. Long time no see. Yeah. You've joined the hair brigade like me.
Yeah, I know. The Lockie trait.
Okay, I will make you host. Okay.
Thank you.
Just give me a second to find your name on the screen.
Hi, Nathan.
There it is. Okay.
Jim, all right?
I am, thank you.
Good. Nice beard. Should be shaven.
Okay, Nathan, you have control of the screen now.
Cheers. Pete Salter, how are we?
Hey, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
How you doing then, boy? You want to go to the haircut?
Okay, no dramas.
Looking forward to it.
Cheers. No taking the mick, you. So Simon, I'll be honest with you, I joined the army for a reason. Bit thick. How do I get this up?
Right, so if you hover at the bottom of your screen, you should have a green box that says share screen.
Yeah, seen.
So if you click on that,
yeah,
you then it should take you to a page where your presentation is already open on your laptop or desktop or whatever you're using.
Yeah, happy with that.
Okay, and then you just click on share screen and there it is.
Happy days.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, perfect.
And then somehow you can press different buttons to make it
do things.
Yeah, I didn't quite get mine to work properly earlier. I had practiced it, but yeah, we can see that. That's fine. Yeah,
are we in there?
Yeah, you've got it. Yeah.
Happy days. Roger, I'm just going to go get a brew, wet the whistle, and I'll be back.
Okay.
Pete Salter, are you still there?
He is, Gary. Yeah, he's.
Eyes away.
He's muted. He should still be.
Tell him. Well, if you can hear me, Pete, you've got very diplomatic since I've known you last. So diplomacy and diplomatic questions, that was never Pete Salter a few years ago, buddy. But it's good to see you.
I think he's got his sound off because he didn't react to that at all.
That's all right. Right, I'll get a coffee. I'll be back in a minute.
Testing. Hey, Gary, stay there. Come back. Hey, my name's Rod. I'm a serving boot. Getting on earlier. I've sent you my phone number as a private message. You send me a WhatsApp. I'll put you in the WhatsApp group.
It broke up a little bit there, Rob. I'm not so sure Gary heard everything.
So that's Gary. I've sent you my number on the thingy in the chat box. You send me your details. I'll put it on the.
Right, I think you're breaking up, but I think I've got the gist. Yeah.
I just added another. Technology.
Simon.
Hello.
This is Martin again. Like in saying about the Western area, it's like with Cairo, there's not a lot to engage them to want to be part of it, or there's not much incentive or reward for, like you say, with the younger players to encourage them, isn't it? Really, a lot of the Western area focus at the older ones a lot more.
Yeah, well, I mean, my general feeling is that someone as young as Cairo is 8 years old should really be within their club at this present time. That's where their development comes at that age group. But the county programs, I know areas not all counties have county programs. So Devon, Bristol, sort of back in my day, there was the county programs were really strong. But things have changed. But a player 8, 9, it's sort of county level, and then the progression should sort of be towards the area level. I know the area sort of, when Sandra was around, sort of, she never used to invite kids to area training if they were sort of under 12. It was sort of like the pre-cadet was a sort of like level. But in the recent years, the age group on the Western Area Development Days has been any age, because development for any development at any age is important, whether they're 5, 6, or 7, and that's why we get lots of coaches in, and we sort of split the day up a little bit and coach appropriately to age-related judo. But it's always difficult to, not difficult to structure it, but difficult to know who would come to those sessions. But it's lots of things to try to engage with, and I think first and foremost, an 8-year-old, their development at that age should primarily be with their club coach, and then the judo is fun and engaging, as I'm hoping Kyra finds my sessions. But yeah, I mean, I get the point. I mean, an 8-year-old wanting to represent the area, it's not going to happen, because there isn't. The national teams is sort of like, they don't really start fighting in national teams. I think it's sort of pre-cadet age, or last year pre-cadet, but it's changed. National teams changes all the time, and it has changed recently. Last year again, I don't know what they'll do, but I doubt the event will be on this year. But
have you split the session, Simon?
Sorry?
I went to your last one, but I can't remember if you split the session for the younger ones.
Yeah.
They were on the mat.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
I mean, that's easy enough done. And if we go to a venue that's got enough mat area, we can do that. We did it here, and we've done it at Bath.
Yeah.
And I think we probably, well, when we had that big session at yours, you know, there was a mat area big enough, and we sort of split it a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just having the experience.
It's keeping them going without them getting bored or distracted, or and maybe having their session for a shorter period of time.
Yeah, most definitely, because they definitely can't cope for a long period. You can have a morning session, and the old ones can stay up, and then you can have the bigger mat in the afternoon.
Yeah, and then they could have the option, if they wanted to stay on longer, they can, or they could go.
Yeah, and I think we did do that last session at Hutton Moor. Some of them ones left earlier, but yeah, that's so fine. But I say we put these days together, and it's just, I mean, it's easy to get the information out there on social media. It's just trying to let people know that these sessions are there for your development and your learning, and not to go along and you're not to be feared of going along and getting basically smashed all over the place by a high level player. They've got to know that the coaches will be responsible and keep players within certain experience levels.
Yeah, because the information has got to get to the players and the parents as well, hasn't it? You know, And if they've got, usually if parents they got a bit of a competitive instinct, they start to show interest anyway, don't they? But the information has got to get to them first.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the difficult bit. I mean, a lot of people use social media, but I mean, unless you're sitting on your phone 24/7, it's very easy for it to slip through the feed, and you don't really see it unless you specifically look to a certain group page.
Yeah, that's
difficult.
right. You know.
Right, so I think we need to shuffle on a bit, shall we, and get on with the next session. I think Nathan's ready.
Back.
Nathan, you back?
I'm back in. I'm in.
Right, if you want to take control then and give us 20 minutes of wisdom, please, on how the Army does
I'm
its
good to go.
S&C.
Okay, right. So welcome everyone. And for those who don't know me, I'm Nathan Lockie. I spent all of my sort of junior and senior career at Doughty Judo Club with Pete before I then went off and joined the Army. A little bit of background on my Army career. I've done operational tours of Afghanistan before I then transferred into the Royal Army Physical Training Corps, where I currently am an all-arms instructor. So for those guys that have got sort of civilian background in physical training, I deliver the level 2 and level 3 course to soldiers so they can go back to their units and implement physical training so that they can get their soldiers fit to fight and out the door. So what I'm going to go through today, as I'm sure you can imagine, is quite a big topic in such a small time. And I guess you could say that it was more aimed at the athlete or the soldier rather than the coach. However, if the coach and the athlete have got a good balance between how they receive the training and how they deliver the training, and actually they bond together and they do make one piece. I'm going to speak more about how we do it in the Army now because times have changed, but there is going to be a little bit as we go through on how we can increase it in our athletes and make them a little bit stronger, less prone to injury, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to cover what is strength and conditioning. I'm just going to break it down as simply as I can for you guys and girls so that you sort of understand. For those of you that know quality, for those of you that don't, it's just a nice little eye-opener for you. Okay, I'm then going to talk about the Army Physical Training System. Okay, and that's what we use in the Army now. So I'll break that down a little bit more. And then I'm going to talk about 7 functional movement patterns that relate to us as soldiers, and they also relate to you as judo players. Because actually, when you think about what you do on a judo mat in comparison to what a soldier can do within his job, it can actually be quite similar. I'm going to talk about 1 rep max so that we cover that and that people aren't wasting training. I know this is very specific to in a gymnasium where we're using weights or lifting tin, but it can also be done on a judo mat, okay, using improvised kit, even things such as power bags and stuff like that, or even body weight exercises using your partners. Going to talk about the modalities of training or strength training so that the lads and girls know what they're doing and what sort of bracket that fits into, whether they're trying to increase their rate force development or their peak force development. And then if I've got a little bit of time at the end, I'm just going to talk about anaerobic training and aerobic. I'm just going to give you the definition so that you sort of understand the difference between the two. Okay, so defining strength and conditioning then. So quite simply broken down into 2 parts. We've got strength on the left-hand side. We've got conditioning on the right-hand side. And I think gone are the old times where people used to think that it was just one thing. And actually, I think it's important that we do all remember that to be good at your strength and conditioning, it almost has to run in line with your technical training as well, so that you've got the explosive strength, so you've got the anaerobic capacity or the aerobic capacity, depending on the sport that you're doing. So strength then, just to break that down, so the ability of the neuromuscular system to produce force against an external resistance. Okay, so I've said whether that's you lifting tin in the gym or whether that's you on the judo mat pulling and pushing your UK around. So that's sort of where that lies. And then we've got the conditioning element, okay, there. The process of training or accustoming a person to behave in a certain way or accept certain circumstances, okay? So that's not just the anaerobic or the aerobic, the heart and lungs side of things. That's also just the psychological side of things as well. And I know Gary Turner, I'm not sure if he's on yet, but he's done a lot with Army Judo in the past and actually got a lot out of people or individuals by working on their sort of psychological aspect as well as strength and conditioning. So strength, then we break that down into resistance training. That could be max strength, okay, strength endurance, hypertrophy, and then muscular endurance. The way that we break them down, I'll show you later on in the PowerPoint, and it's a good opportunity for people to get a screenshot of that because it gives you the table in what you know that you're training for. Okay, so max strength, clearly how heavy we can push something, how heavy we can pull something. Strength endurance is working on that heavy weight, but sort of getting more repetitions in, so we're sort of fighting against the fatigue. Hypertrophies for those guys and girls that want to look good on the beach in the summer. And then we've got the muscular endurance, which is allowing our body to work under load for a longer strength part of time. Then we've got explosive strength, which is broken down into plyometric and ballistic. I'm not going to cover those today because for me to teach that to the lads and ladies that come through the army takes about 4 weeks to get it right. So unfortunately, I won't be able to cover that today. Then on the conditioning side of things, like I've already alluded to, we've got our metabolic component. That's talking about our energy systems that we're utilizing. So a phosphorecreatine, for those of you that know, the glycotic and the oxidative energy systems. So it's gone are the days, eat the Snickers bar. That'll give you energy for your competition. We're talking about the science behind things now and the sort of the reactions that are happening within our body in response to the sort of training that we're doing. Okay, so the cardiovascular component, frequency, intensity, and duration. This is where it becomes more specific. So clearly for a judo player, you're going to look at high intensity, but for a shorter duration, rather than a marathon runner who's going to look at low intensity, but a huge duration of time. Okay, the neuromuscular compound, that's talking about the CNS and the PNS, the nervous system, and the sort of neuromuscular pathways that we create from doing repetition and so on and so forth. And then I've already spoke about the psychological component, okay, the understanding. And one thing that I think that we forget massively about is definitely the recovery. So the work to rest ratio, that's allowing our phosphocreatine system to replenish after we've done a certain exercise. And then our nutrition, our rest, so that adaptation can happen, and then sleep so that we can return back to homeostasis. A lot of information on those two slides or on this single slide there, I'm sure you can understand. But if you feel free to ask me any questions, then do so at the end. At the bottom there, I've just put, it just proves that we can't do one single session of strength and conditioning. When I first joined the army, it was we're going to do strength and conditioning lesson 1 today. And apparently that encompassed everything that strength and conditioning had. But clearly we was working so far away from the reality, hence the reason why injuries were more common back then. Okay, so this is how we do it in the army now. We've got 3 blocks. So kind of those guys that have trained in the past, they've done their periodization training. Okay, so we look at our foundation, our resilience, and then our specific block. So as I talk through these, I'm going to talk how we can relate that back to a judo player as well. So in the foundation block for a soldier, we're teaching somebody how to move properly. So whether that be the hand clean, the clean and jerk. Okay, so it's getting their body used to that movement pattern. Teaching, education, getting that neuromuscular system talking so that people start to remember. From there, we're going to talk about technique. We're going to educate the students, something that never happened in the army. And I know that the likes of Jim McKenzie and Bob Kubath, who are fellow corpsmen, would agree with me there that actually it was just do it and not know why. So we're looking at building, recovering, and the adaptation that's coming from that. So that foundation block in the judo sense is getting a novice judo player on the mat, teaching them the skills and drills in a nice, slow, controlled environment. Okay, working a little bit on their anaerobic or their aerobic capacity because of what we're doing, whether that be nagi-komi or randori. From there, then, as a soldier, we move on to the resilience block. Okay, and this is where we start bringing in real life situations. So if we've got casualties out on the battlefield, this is the sort of area that we start to bring that in to our training. So it becomes more green, more tactical PT, and it becomes slightly more realistic to a battle zone, but actually we've still got the safety and the education that goes with it. So for a judo player, this is kind of looking at, they've gone through the learning phase. This may be the middle block of a competition. So they may be training, they're tapering, they're recovering, and then they're hitting back in. So that week 4 in the resilience block for a judo player may be one of his many competitions that actually is going towards a greater aim, so that the specific block, for example, in a judo term, could be the national championships. So the judo players using his resilience block to get his experience, to learn his lessons, to understand his judo, to move forward to the specific block where he hopes to have learnt the lessons and execute that plan with good anaerobic or aerobic background. He's strong, okay, he's injury free, and he's ready to perform from lessons learned. So from a soldier then, in these blocks, this is what we're looking at: increasing muscular endurance, increasing aerobic base. Okay, if we haven't got that aerobic base, we're just going to cause injuries, and that's the same throughout any sport, whether that's specifically to a single sport or whether that's just to somebody who likes to go out and do their own phys in their own time. Mobility and flexibility and agility is massive, okay, and it's also huge for judo. So as a soldier, there's been many times where I've been tabbing around the Ulu with lots of weight on, I've hit potholes, and I've not had the agility or the mobility and flexibility to sort of stop me from getting injured. Same on a judo mat. We all know that sort of ACL injuries in judo and ankle injuries can be quite high. So working on that agility and mobility is really good. And to be fair, Pete Salter, even when I was at the club, used to get the ladders out an awful lot, and that's something that we did implement. So it's good to see that that people are doing it, and it gives the athlete sort of a good baseline without even needing to know what they're doing. As we move forward through the resilience, then that's starting to look at load training for a soldier, or being more specific for you as a judo player. And then the specific block, we're looking at increasing the load. However, the realities of war come in here now, and this is where we are deploying out on operational tours, sort of kicking doors in. For you as a judo player, that's where you're going to be looking at actually executing your hard work in a real scenario. Okay, so the reason why I've put these in here, the 7 functional movement patterns, this is how we sort of work as a soldier. But when you think about the movements that we do in judo, they're pretty similar. So the squat and the lunge, depending on the technique that you're doing. The hinge, that's being able to break at the hips, okay, but keeping a neutral spine. So sort of loading the hamstring area and the glute, also quite pertinent to judo. We've got the push and the pull, and then we've got the brace and the rotate. The brace and the rotate I've put at the bottom there because I feel that they're the two that we forget about the most. But when we actually think about what we're doing as a judo player, they're quite important. So have the ability to build that intra-abdominal pressure in our stomach. So Pete sort of loves the plank, and I know he'll have a chuckle there. But doing exercises like that look pretty simple actually have a massive benefit on our body in the end. And then the rotate, something that we don't do very often. So if you think about a judo throw, we're preloading Seoinage, for example. So we've got the player on our back, we're in that preloaded state. Before we execute that throw, we've got to brace the core and rotate, but it's something that we never practice. So if we was to use something like a medicine ball, where we can preload that and throw it into a crash mat, okay, that's working on that brace of the core and the rotate, which would minimize quite a lot of core or back injuries. So that's the reason why I've put that in there. Okay, and then the component of fitness. So we're talking about our anaerobic and aerobic capacity. We're talking about the speed, muscular strength, muscular power, muscular endurance, agility, flexibility, mobility, balance, and stability. Balance is something that a soldier always forgets about. We never tip a bench upside down and crack on with it because we think it's easy. But actually, for me as a judo player and a soldier, actually it's quite fundamental to everything that I do. And I've got to practice what I preach. And then I've just put on there as well, we want to be fitter, faster, stronger. So we need to build on our endurance, our speed and agility, and our strength. Okay, so I've just put a little quote here. A soldier who is fit to fight can operate in any environment, allowing us to surprise, capture, or kill the enemy, ensuring we as an army are operationally effective. Okay, and that's the same as you as a judo player. You want to be effective whilst in the contest area, and we want to be effective when we're in the killing zone or we're out on operational deployment. So I've just got a few photos here of what I've done with my students at the PT school and sort of showing you how different elements of strength and conditioning are utilised. So here we're working on our aerobic capacity. This was a 12-mile cross-country run where they raced against each other as individuals. So like I said, working on our aerobic capacity. Here, this is that resilience block. So they're carrying 35 kilos here plus their weapon. So that's 40 kilos. So as I'm sure you can imagine, massively working on the aerobic training zone, but slow, quite monotonous training, and has a lot of load bearing on the body. So it can cause quite a lot of injuries, hence the reason why we need to go through all of the specific phases. Here then, we could be working anaerobically or aerobically, depending on how far we've got to extract the casualty. And as you can see there, the lads are pulling a 110 kilo casualty drag bag with full kit on, or fighting kit, which is webbing, helmet and rifle. And that could take up to 40 seconds to get to the line that they need to do. So if you think about the components of fitness I spoke about there, quite a lot of them are involved. Exactly the same again, but working as a team here to extract the casualty from the injury zone, and that's 120 kilo log split between 6 people. So as I'm sure you can imagine, the vigors that are on the body there are quite high and quite intense. Climbing ropes, we've all done it. Those lads that have been to Bath know what them ropes are like. So yeah, the strains that they have on the body. Same again, using each other as casualties this time. This event lasted 3 hours, so just think about the aerobic capacity that they would be working on there. And then we need to be able to do everything that we're doing as a soldier, even in the water. So this is swimming with full kit on. So if we was having to cross any water features out on the ground, then we'd be able to do so efficiently and effectively. And then my favourite, the obs course. Okay, working on that psychological sort of barrier as well, getting the lads working hard, digging deep, and sort of hitting every element there, but not knowing when they're stopping. Okay, so moving on to 1 rep now, and then I'll finish up there. So this is good for the athlete, and if you want to take a screenshot now, please do. This is just how we go through testing someone's 1 rep max. And why I think it's important that I put this in is so that we know that the lads that are doing the training are getting good training, and they're going to sort of minimise the risk of injury. So please take a screenshot of that now. But I've got an example on the next slide. So here, I used an app, find it on Android or Apple, and I'm not a salesman, I promise you. And it's just for your 1 rep max. So I did a back squat of 150 kilos at 3 reps. So that means that my 1 rep max would be roughly 164 kilograms. Okay, and then my 5 RM would roughly be 145. I know that just looks like a lot of numbers now to people, but when I bring up the next slide here, as you can see, it's important to understand why we've got them numbers. So if I want to hit maximum strength, okay, I need to be working at 90 to 110% of my 1 hour rep. I know there's a lot of you thinking now, how can you hit 110%? Okay, and the way that we do that is in a negative rep. So if I was doing a bench, for example, the lads would be spotting me. Okay, I'd take that 110% of my 1 rep max off the rack, and then I'd eccentrically load it to my chest, and then the lads would take the weight off me, re-wrap the weight. That's how we work on maximum strength, so that we can work above our threshold. So if you just take a screenshot of that, or take a photo of that now, it just gives you the modalities for training that are going to be quite pertinent for you guys, or something that you can give your judo players underneath you, something to go away so that they can work on them elements, but doing it safely, understanding their 1 rep max. Okay, weekly prescription then. This is really hard to sort of understand the gist or where we're going from. So what we say, and according to the UK SCA Strength and Conditioning, a beginner should be 2 to 3 sessions per week, intermediate 3 to 4 sessions, and advanced 4 to 7. This does include your judo as well, so I don't think that you need to do this on top of your judo. This should be as part of your training program. But ultimately, listen to your body, because if you start to get injuries, little niggles and stuff like that, then this is where you're gonna sort of find them. They're gonna come to the forefront, and then you will become injured. So listen to your body, and if you think actually 1 session a week for you plus a strength and conditioning session's enough, then do that. And then as you move through your periodization training, you'll find that your tolerance will become higher. You'll be less susceptible to injury, and so on and so forth. Okay. So I'm not going to go into anaerobic or aerobic. I just want to go through the definition because obviously time is getting on us, and these subjects are massive. So I just want to read the definition. So aerobic then. So that's using air. So the definition of aerobic capacity is the ability to sustain a sub-maximal effort for a sustained period of time. And I'm sure that you would all agree that's kind of the opposite to what we're doing on a judo mat. I know that when I go down train with the army lads or go to see Pete, there's times where I'm definitely just sucking in air from anywhere. So moving on to the anaerobic then is the ability to sustain a maximal effort for a short period of time. Like I've already said, I'm more than happy to talk to people offline. I've said to Pete that I'm more than happy to come down to the club post-COVID where we can sort of start doing these things, whether that be body weight, partner exercises, or I'll try and bring some kit down. I think that'd be really good. So a picture paints 1,000 words. And just to summarise then, I got a picture of Teddy Rayner there. Okay, strength and conditioning is different to everybody. I don't think that I could prescribe one person or one area a strength and conditioning program because it all depends on the individual. And I know there's really educated people amongst our sort of cohort here that would totally agree with that. However, it is something that's easy to learn, and I guarantee you by doing more strength and conditioning, you're going to minimise the chance of it or the risk of injury. You're going to recover quicker, and you're going to be more efficient on the judo mat. So that's my 20 minutes whistle-stop tour of strength and conditioning. If anyone's got any questions.
Hi, Nathan.
Yeah.
Not a question really. It was just, and this isn't because you mentioned Doughty Judo Club a couple of times, but that was brilliant. That was really good.
Oh, thanks, Pete. Appreciate
well
that.
Well done.
Thank
well
you.
Put together. Good stuff.
Cheers.
Nathan, if you stop share, then we can all see.
Oh, stop. Sorry. Stop share. Yeah.
And then before we go anywhere, you need to reassign me as host. Otherwise, when you leave, everything will drop out.
I'll ruin your day. You don't want that for me.
I did that the other night with Joyce Heron. Forgot.
You'll have to talk me through that, mate. I'm not going to lie.
Okay, no worries. Open participants. And a list of names should come up the side.
Yeah, seen.
And then you'll see my name, and then you'll just hover over my name and make host. Hopefully.
Yeah, so thanks, Nate, for that. Really informative. I know it was a whistle-stop through, and we were struggling to see what we could condense into 20 minutes. But again, as Pete said, great job. Thanks for that. Just to let the Western area know, we've also got 2 S&C subject matter experts on the Army Martial Arts team now. They've done their master's degrees. They're affiliated to the Army Martial Arts. What I'm looking at is one of the guys is a reservist who works in Bristol. And I'm going to try and affiliate him directly with maybe Bristol or Bath or somewhere like that. Again, Nathan's offered his services as well. So again, Simon, just if you need anything on S&C, do link up and we'll get some guys down to you once we're allowed back on the mat. Has anybody any questions? I see there's a question online from one of the chats. Just fire away, guys. We've got 5 minutes for some questions.
Hi, Nathan. Liam from Six Scots here. Thanks for that. That was really informative. Just from me, so when I'm helping devise training programs for the players, certainly in the Scots, so use that example. I don't know if you just when you're recording judo and all your battalion PT. Have you got any sort of top tips, as well, of how not to overload the guys or ensure that they're able to progress with their green phase, so their tabbing and everything like that, while still being able to build that judo-specific conditioning?
Yeah, so I think importantly for you there, when they're actually doing their judo stuff, there's nothing wrong with that S&C element being as part of the session. So you could almost have a sort of S&C warm-up. You could focus on one thing during that judo session, which is related to S&C. Clearly, it's hard for a soldier because of the other to be fit to fight, so they will hit overload. But if they listen to their body, you'll find that because of what we've done to get to where we are, we're normally used to that sort of volume training anyway. But I would just say you can implement some sort of lifting element into your session. There's no reason why that couldn't happen. And then the good thing about that is it's judo specific. Using a new cake, you can still achieve the same, but making it specific.
Yes, so some of this, fireman's carries, equal applicable to casualties as it would be as part of a warm-up for judo session, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And that's how we do it at PT school. Before I get anyone over the obstacles, I make sure that they've done things like functional movement, carrying of each other, so they're bracing the core. So if you think about what you're doing, and then if you stop as you're doing that exercise, and think about what you're doing and what you're doing and how you feel, then you'll understand actually how that S&C element influences what you're doing.
Great, thank you.
If you've got a line on email or whatever, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, great, thank you.
I think that's my audience hand up earlier.
Yeah, I know you're talking about in terms of your job and you're all in sort of that remit, but when you sort of compare it to judo, at what sort of age or level would you sort of recommend that sort of coaches put this type of thing in?
such a good question. And you could sort of go down that hole there. I think you can implement low-level strength and conditioning from the lowest level. Even if you just got lads doing, or lads and ladies, sorry, doing things like balance exercises, using things like body weight exercises, it's not going to have any sort of harm on the body. It's when you start looking at the big 1RMs and the effect that it's going to have on the neuromuscular system, that's when you're going to start causing injury. So I'd wait for people to be fully developed. But things like balance and proprioception, stuff that we don't really think that we're doing that much, is vitally important to strength and conditioning. So you can do the lower grassroots level stuff as soon as they get on the mat as part of the warm-up. I would just wait until lads and ladies are fully developed so that we don't cause any sort of injury on the body.
And just one more, in terms of the energy systems, you know, if I've got sort of kids that are like under 12, like which line would you recommend to go down? Like which one first and when to hit the other one?
So with energy systems, so a whistle-stop tour, you're always going to kick off in the phosphate creatine system. Once you've started an exercise, so when I stand up now, for example, I'm going to drop off that molecule, make it a diphosphate, and then I start cycling through the glycotic and the oxidative energy system. So the kids, even when they go to school and run around the playground, they're going to be utilizing them energy systems. So you're not really going to have any of that. That's not going to have any influence against their health, if that makes sense. It's just going to make them fitter, basically. So doing sprints across the mat, whether that be longer duration or shorter duration, and the intensity isn't really going to have any problem. I'd say that the problems are going to come when you start hitting the weight stuff more so than the heart and lungs.
Great. I think we'll let you off the hook now, Nate. Thanks for that.
No dramas.
Yeah.
Happy days.
Really, thanks for joining. I think we're quite good to go on the next session now. Then.
Yeah, sure.
Simon,
Thanks, Nathan. That was really good. And I think obviously for coaches, most coaches probably get a bit scared about the do's and don'ts about strength and conditioning, particularly of age children. But I think there's lots of information out there, lots of science available online that you can obviously research and create your own educated opinions. But well done. Thank you. Is it me next time? I can't remember. Look at my timetable. Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's me, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, you're back on.
Right. Okay. So what we just because the person I want to do this is not around, but I thought it was worth spending 2 minutes over lockdown and how we are trying to engage our share our experience, share our clubs in this time. We can get this right this time. It's going to go for the time. So can we all continue to work at snail pace? Why is it not going to the next one? Here we go. Give Nathan's slide. So I will make that available. And obviously this has been recorded, so you can obviously look back at it once I upload it, and you can have a look at it. I know there's a lot of people out there being inventive and being creative and watching ideas what other people are doing, and me included. So as an area coach, I took a really quick decision. Fortunately, working in a school, I was given the opportunity of having Zoom available to me free of charge. So I was given this. I'm not particularly brilliant at it yet, but I used it straight away to obviously create still keep engagement with the kids in my club and the school. So I thought we'd start really, but this is just a basic idea. Now, some of you might probably already know all this, some of you won't. Obviously, there's a few ports of call where you can go and find information that is relevant to the current situation. Now, working in a school, our school is constantly up to date with the government procedures on a daily basis. And as we all know, we all watch the news, we know what's going on. The IGF created a really good document on protocols around the pandemic and how they see judo slowly coming back. It was one of the best documents I've read from the IGF. It really broke it down. I'm not going to open it and go through it, but it is online and you can go there. It breaks down rules and regulations within certain levels of the pandemic. So at level 5 and at level 2, when you can start coming back into the dojo. And I know there's clubs in Europe that are training outdoors, and there's clubs training with just siblings, and I know there's clubs training with no contact at all. So that will come our way eventually in the next month, I would imagine, that opportunities will be allowed here. The BJA have got their own COVID sort of site, hub site they call it. And again, you can click on there. And I did find when I looked on there yesterday, you can access the grading system on there to put your grading results in from your free gradings with Sarah Walker. Sport England have got helpline and information there. There's lots of helps and there for Sport England, again, regarding people who've maybe got their own dojos funded. You might be looking for some hardship funding. It's all there. Contact Sport England. The Youth Sports Trust have got their own sort of hub as well. I've used Youth Sports Trust hub website myself because they've got loads of engaging activities to do with your kids. From little challenges to little online games and stuff like that. So even if you might not be looking for COVID information, there is lots of little 60-minute, 60-second challenges. If you've got young kids in your club, you could chuck them out on your Facebook page or your Instagram or whatever you use to engage with your club. And if you're running out of ideas, there is lots of things to do there. I've used all of them in my PE lessons in the last 8 weeks. And then we go to the sort of more protocol stuff. The government guidance came out this sort of week on phased returns to sport and recreation. There's loads of documents here. I think there's 4 or 5 documents there that relate to different aspects of leisure centres, elite athletes, and so there's information there. And then the last one I thought in, which would be possibly over. You would probably not think about looking at this, but the healthcare settings documentation. When your dojo is back open, do you understand that your requirements for healthcare are your responsibility? Will you have the sanitizer gel in your dojo? Will you have the area that what do you understand about cleaning after kids come in and what cleaning after people go home? So there's some information on there about the health related settings when you open your dojo. There's lots of information there. So again, those if you search Google, you can easily find them. But if you haven't seen them, I strongly recommend you read the IGF forum here. Okay. So moving on. Ooh, come on, next page, please. Why is that not moving to the next page? My technology. Nathan had this sus. Why is it mine not working? Why is that not working? Right, this worked earlier. Yeah, no way. Sorry about this, everyone. Have a good laugh at me about this, probably. Right, let's stop share and let's start again. Sorry about this. Oop, no. Let's try again. And back there. Yeah. All right, just bear with me. I'm work in progress. Sorry. I might have to do it this way. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Okay. So as a coaching team in the area, we have a few formats that we've used in recent weeks to engage with the kids. So we obviously use Zoom. We obviously engage with the Facebook, Instagram. We've created an Instagram account for the Western area in the recent weeks, and just last week we created a YouTube channel, which is been uploaded with a few training elements, particularly from the summer camp when our coaches have demonstrated some techniques, like Ben and Adam and Jason have done some stuff. We've uploaded that to the YouTube channel, and as well as a few things that I've picked up in the past, which might help. And then we also, a Kahoot is a great way of engaging with your club. Kahoot quizzes, online virtual reality sort of gaming, in not like your Minecraft and your Roblox stuff, but educational Kahoots. Now you can, those accounts, you can open one of them for free at the moment because of COVID. They're giving that away free. But we ran a Kahoot quiz a couple of weeks ago, and it's another way of engaging with your kids. You could have a quiz night, you could have a training ideas through quizzes and stuff like that. So it's just about being creative and finding ways which engage with your kids in your club. Now, I'm not sure if this is working. Hopefully you've seen that. So what we've done, we had a Kahoot quiz, and we created the Bob Taylor Trophy and we had all the kids for 24 hours, I think 12 hours we did, and we had an online quiz about the area, and we did back in 12th of April we did this, and we ran a little competition points system, and then we had a county that won the event. So I think Devon won it. But we had about 160 kids taking part in that. So it was a good way of engaging people in the early phases of lockdown. And then we came up with the NHS idea of helping help stay at home. And we had what I believe to be a rather successful stay-at-home judoka day, where we really introduced online training for the first time. And we had sessions led by Jason, Tom, myself, Eva, Lily came in and did a guest session with her brother, Chris Sherrington, and then we had some tutorials from Neil Adams, a Q&A with Sally Conway and Ben Fletcher. Now that was put together in a couple of days' notice, and again, an idea that we did, which has sort of sparked interest, and other areas are following suit rapidly. So that's just some of the things we've put together. Now then, what are we going to do? What are we going to do as normal, as our new normal? So, I mean, these are just general ideas that are related around the conditions within our sport at the moment. I know I'm no expert, and I'm not preaching here to say this is the only thing you can do. These are taken from the guidelines from the IGF, and some of the things that you can offer at the moment if you're willing to do Zoom sessions or Instagram Live or things like that. So we know we can do shadow uchikomi, we can use the bands, we know we can work on fundamental motor skills and technical skill developments away from the mat area. Some people have siblings at home that you can do some individual practice with. Also, we know we can't go and teach them in their homes, but finding ways of doing the shadow uchikomi. Now, when Neil Adams came on with our session, he was very, very adamant that the bands are excellent, providing done with full body movement. And don't stress that doing 1,000 is good for you if 1,000 are wrong. So having that process of turning, rotating the body, using the elements of the aerobic and anaerobic systems as well, and getting that functional movement correct as much as possible. So he very famously said quality rather than quantity. Ukemi, I mean, the younger ones can just practice a little bit of ukemi at home, I believe, just basic, even if it's just familiarising themselves with the names. Movements, postures, coordination, lots of areas you could practice and be creative with movement patterns, coordination, mobility exercises, core stability exercises, postures, getting your movement patterns rehearsed away from the mat. So that's areas you could implement into your Zoom sessions. And I'm sure there's many more ideas out there. Conditions with coaching. So when people start to come back to sessions, and I know watching the news and watching other pages around Europe, I mean, social distancing is the key here, 2 meters. And how can you do that in a judo room? It almost impossible with no, well, not impossible, but definitely won't be contact. So do you reposition your mats in a different way? You have to have them outside at the moment if you're going to do any training in Europe. Obviously, we're not allowed to do any training more than 1-to-1 at the moment with anybody in this country. But social distancing in your dojo, I mean, it is obvious that when dojos open that you will not be able to have a mat full of 50 kids or 30 kids. There will be rules in place. What they are, we don't know. There's talk of 1 to 8 numbers. I just don't know. I'm not in a position to be able to give that data of how many kids you can have in your dojo, other than the fact that it does depend on the size of your mat area. So you will have limited number of athletes coming back into your club. Now that will greatly impact clubs that have got rents and higher charges to cover. That, you know, it's going to be difficult, and you're going to have to get your head around ways of making that work for each individual club. Contact restrictions within the system. Obviously, you know, there's talk that when we do come back into dojo, mandatory wearing of face masks will be law. Obviously, the washing and the hand washing facilities are going to be imperative to be kept up. I understand a club in Europe, from listening to their sort of YouTube channel, They have one class for half an hour with 10 kids. They have a 15-minute window where they leave in a separate entrance to where they came in. They then wash the mats and then wait 10 minutes for anything bacterial to basically die down. And then the next group come in. So it is going to be difficult, and I feel it is going to offer many challenges ahead when dojos reopen. I personally feel that it's not a challenge that you can shy away from, and I think it will just add to your journey of the judo, so to speak. But I think the first thing that most clubs might be able to offer is outdoor training, whether it be boot camp style, physical training, social distance, on a field near your dojo, or just meet up in the park. I know a club in the Wirral at the moment meet up in the local woods. There did seem to be some more than one-to-one training there, though, when I saw their pictures from their club yesterday, though. So, so it's difficult. But like the little picture at the bottom, show your determination, show you're strong, be motivated, try and find a way to fit all. So, moving to the next slide. I think I'm not even sure I can do this without doing where we got here. So sharing ideas. I mean, this is really important because everybody's got ideas. This is just a screenshot of some of the ideas that I've personally used in the Western area Zoom sessions. So the Uchikomi bands, high pulls, right and left sided, the Tsuki lifting arm, the pulling arms, getting it all used, so getting that neurological system working with the muscle groups. Chucking in a few anaerobic exercises in between all this with some burpees, the Tendoku Renshi, the Shadow Uchikomi. So there is things you can do, and that's just one circuit we did one of the Tuesday nights. This is a circuit we did with Niwas and mobility stuff on the ground, a little bit more difficult on the ground. So, and what we did here, we started with the basic bridge. We added a shrimp to the bridge after you come down. We added some progression to rolling over the shoulder. And each age group, I mean, the young kids could do a bridge, the 6, 7, 8 year olds doing the bridge, and the older ones were adding the shrimp. And it was just finding ways that you can create the older kids to get some progression. Kneeling movements here, again, everything's progression. Leg curls, push out mobility, we're using the Sangaku sort of legs and sit ups. So always trying to add things to the exercises to keep it engaged. I found personally with the Zoom sessions that it's very hard to demonstrate this and then do it with the kids. Just demonstrate it a couple of times and then sort of come away from doing it and have a look at the screen and then sort of coach from there and go back and pull them back if you need to just sort of do anything different. Ooh. Oh dear, sorry. Left one. Oh dear. Oh, I think I've worked out how to move it now. Right, sorry. Your Shadow Uchikomi. So what we did here, we looked at 3 techniques and we started to link them together. But what was important when we did this, we emphasized the importance of not just turning in for Tachoshi, then stopping and turning in for Nippon Seoinage. It was trying to relate it to as much reality as possible. So feeling a block, taking a change of direction, making a bigger pull, bigger step, increasing the movement patterns between the throws. I tried to keep it as close to reality as possible. And that was just a link of 5 techniques, using different directions and left and right sided grips with posture and movements. So it was just a case of finding things that fitted. And what we're finding on the Zoom session for the Western areas, we're trialing things, it doesn't work, we go back, I look at it again and we revisit it. And this is where we come up with this sort of formula now, where this kind of works. So I just put these in here because, I mean, there's a wealth of stuff online. You can't go online without seeing something from somebody. Obviously, some of it is really, really good and educational and evidence-based, supported with some really good thought processes, and a lot of stuff which is obviously okay, move on to the next one sort of thing. But I mean, you've got to be brave to put it out there. So I found Travis Stevens' stuff has been really good. There's a little link there to some of his stuff. He's been really, really good with his home training ideas, and that's just one you could look up. Again, so some really good Niwas and mobility movements here from a Japanese coach. Some really good stuff there. So it is some good stuff out there if you're willing to sort of sit down and have a little look. And then there were some body weight exercises, particularly good for kids with no weights or kettlebells or anything. So some total body weight circuits for fighters. So this stuff is all out there. And then this was the Neil Adams one that he talked about when we did our session. So the home workouts with his bands. There is ideas out there, and if you're willing to do Zoom sessions and you're willing to find ways to be creative with your club, there is lots of help out there that you could steal, Nick, talk to people and create some ideas. And just make it fun, make it engaging, and try your best to just always ask the kids what they want from a session. You know, you're going to get a different answer from every kid. And if you don't know what they want, you can't plan for that. So, I mean, we don't always think what you want is what they want, I think is the point I'm trying to make there. And then what I really would like to do, and I really would like to create some sort of library. And let's not beat back the bush here. I don't see anyone being back inside a dojo before October. That's my opinion. I don't see dojos or contact sport being back inside the contact. We're doing contact judo until at least October. That's what I feel. Listening to reading documents that I have from the school. But what I would like to try and do is try and create a sort of virtual dojo for kids. And this goes back to really what we talked about earlier, and that's if we want kids to stay in our clubs and our sport, we have to sort of give them the opportunity to experience some training. I run sessions here. Now I know full well that some kids can't get to there because they're doing something else, or some clubs are running sessions in the afternoon at 2 or 3 o'clock. I think I saw a session yesterday at 10 o'clock in the morning with from Gateshead, and we're all doing 3 o'clock in the afternoon sessions. So is there a way that we can create a weekly system in the Western area where clubs are willing, if they're holding these sessions, to say, yeah, we've got it, just come and join us, it's not a problem. And then we could sort of use this as a sort of stepping stone to help out everybody. Now I know some people are scared of technology and it's just a no-go, but I would embrace it and try it a little bit. It is scary sometimes using technology when you're not used to it, and things do go wrong. The internet crashes. It's inevitable, but we found that sort of part of the fun as well. So the Excel sessions are on Tuesday, 5 to 6. They've run really, really well. We're having on average 80 kids come to that session now, and adults join as well. And we're looking at breakout rooms now, if we can try and split the age groups up a little bit. So we've had sessions there from Joyce Heron last week, Tom, myself, Eva, and in 2 weeks' time, Nakoda is running a session for us. So there's something there for everybody. My own club sessions are on a Thursday. Diane at Shepton does a fitness class on a Friday. Patchway do a morning on a Saturday. And the European Judo Union just started to launch live YouTube sessions on a Sunday morning. I think David LaRosse is running the session tomorrow at 11 o'clock. So you can click onto that. But if you're willing to have your Zoom sessions open, let me know, and we can create a library of opportunities for people to visit other clubs and engage with their friends. And I think the most important thing, working from a school anyway, is that kids need that contact. They need to see their friends, and they need to see as much close to reality as possible. And having a Zoom session where they can chat and say hello to each other and watch each other train is vital to their well-being, and possibly our well-being as well, trying to keep normal. So I feel this could be a good opportunity for clubs who maybe don't have the skills to do the Zoom. You could say, look, really like Patchway, they're willing to let you come visit them and train, so it's fine. There are some security issues around Zoom. They are tightening up their systems all the time. That's why we use the codes and the passwords. But I mean, everything's open to hacking nowadays. So it is the risk you take. You just try and change your password as much as possible to keep yourself safe. So I'll leave that one there. And my final little one really is, let's try and work together, everybody. Let's keep it as normal as possible. many parents out there will be scared about sending their kids back to judo. That's something some of you might not have thought about. There's enough debate online at the moment about parents not wanting to send their kids to school. So they want to send them to a dojo where there's contact. It's going to take some brave parents to start. There will be parents in recreational levels that will go, no, not doing judo anymore because of the fear of this disease at the moment. So you have to bear that in mind. You'll get your core back, who are your competitive players maybe that love it, but there'll be a lot of parents I feel that will be like, you know, your recreational little 1 time a week session, they might be thinking twice about coming back to judo until there's a vaccine. So we need to keep engaged with our judoka, our clubs, and we need to keep motivated. So that really feeds back to where Ross and Pete were talking earlier about forums and trying to get together and try to come up with ideas that engage our kids, because that number of 2,557 will rapidly drop if we let slide our enthusiasm to keep our clubs as operational as possible. So I think that is where I left it with that. I think if you're creative and you have some good ideas, share them. There's loads of ideas out there. I am only too willing to share what we've done at a Western area level to people and see how it goes. But if there was any shared thoughts or comments, speak now.
Simon, just oh, sorry.
No, sorry, Ross, carry on.
Okay, just a quick one. Something that kind of hit us recently. Obviously, we do our main session is at a leisure centre, and there is probably a chance that things like badminton and tennis will come back a long time, you know, a considerably long time before judo. So just advice to anyone who's kind of renting a facility, might be worth reaching out to those, the people who own it or whatever, and just explaining the situation. What we intend to do is say that obviously we're not going to ask them to not fill those sessions, but perhaps temporarily fill them, you know, with another sport, but we need them when we come back. And I think you need to put pressure on them to do that. The other thing we're discussing as well is that when we did, I mean, it's going to be difficult. I think the BJA need to give a lead on this because they were quite ambiguous when it came to actually closing. I think they need to look at a date potentially and say to players and coaches, this would be the date you come back. If we get that and we get obviously restrictions with it, you know, whether they're fitness sessions or not, we're going to try and do like a kind of a relaunch thing, like a not like a party. I mean, it's hard to imagine a party now, but just trying to encourage everyone to come back. And Simon's absolutely right. I think your senior juniors, you know, your green belt, your orange belts and up will be there, but it's going to be those red and yellow belts who might, you know, I mean, the reality is they're not doing anything else during this period, but there will be a period where they can do other sports but won't be able to do judo. So that's the key for me, is to kind of keep engaging. I mean, online sessions are great. You know, we have encouraged our kids to do the Western area ones. They haven't really latched onto that yet. We had a session with Dakota Davies yesterday, it went very well. But it's more the connection to the kids. That's the thing. You know, I mean, I've tried to email. I've sent out handwritten letters. I mean, I appreciate that costs money, but you know, just trying to make a connection to them, basically to say, look, we haven't forgotten you. We're missing you. We're looking forward to seeing you again. You know, and all of that sort of thing. Keeping them kind of engaged, because I think that is the most important thing during this time. I mean, to me, you know, 6 months off, you know, that's nothing. But to a kid, obviously, you know, who's 6 years old, that's 10% of their life. So sadly, it's not 10% of mine. But yeah, I really think the main thing, if you can't do the online sessions and not everybody is able to do it, access the Western area ones. But even just, you know, keep in contact with those players. Just, you know, even if it's just a two-line email saying, hi, you know, I'm missing you. Sorry, we're missing you, and you know, we're looking forward to you coming back.
Valid points. Communication is the absolute key at the end of the day.
And Simon, I was just going to share some of the things that we've done. So the last 2 weeks, we've managed breakout rooms. So Chris has been doing some gradings in the breakout room, and so's Toddy. So we've sort of had our normal sessions, so people don't have to do extras. And then the breakout rooms are really, really easy. They're not difficult to do at all. and that's worked really well. But one of the other things we did a competition for them to write their own judo stories, and we did it in different age groups and offered prizes, and that's been really good at keeping the kids interacted and being part of it as well. And obviously we are encouraging them to go to all the other sessions, and a couple of our players are doing more sessions now than they would do normally, which is quite nice.
Yeah, and I think also there's been lots of activities launched by the BJ, the activities for kids, the drawing competitions. The IGF did a fantastic one with their sort of like friendship and modesty sort of drawings that they did. And I think they launched yesterday Are You Fit for a Judoka program, where you can challenge the elite athletes to so many press-ups in a minute and stuff like that, which looked really good. So there's more ideas there to engage them with. Any other sports
Yes,
questions?
Simon,
Darren?
if I may. Thank you. Everything we've talked about today so far has been based around children.
Yeah.
And I know children make up the vast number of judoka at this present time. But at a time where we seem to be losing a vast number of judo players across the BJJ and Sambo, and maybe I'm talking about Cornwall, but I don't think so. What are the intentions? What can we actually do to keep our senior judoka entertained and keep them engaged? We always seem to be overlooking those, or maybe that's just my interpretation.
No, you've got a valid point, Darren. And it is a frequent question I'm asked. So what can you do for seniors? What can you do for the seniors? And to be honest, I if I'm going to be brutally honest, I haven't got the time to look after the senior side of the judo. I work full time. I do stuff with the England. I do stuff on the campus. It's a job I can't put much time to. I mean, top of my head, seniors could do a virtual quiz night together based around judo on Kahoot. I know that I spoke to Diane this week. She's really concerned that many masters won't come back to judo because of their age and their loss of fitness over this period of time. They'll really struggle to get back into any sort of shape they were in before. It will take a long time for the masters to come back to full strength, if some of them come back at all, particularly the ages of some of them. I would be so willing to have an open debate with anybody around the coaching forum, like we discussed earlier, to try to create a system for the seniors. In my eyes, probably this is wrong to say, but I've always looked at the seniors as like, when you're at senior, your Bath's the next step. You know, you go and do your sessions at Bath on a Monday night with well, now it's Adam, it's a GB program on a Monday night now as well, isn't it? So I've always looked at that. There are clubs with good seniors in them. I know near me, I mean, I've got Neil Rood near me, and that's a basketball session as a BJC club. But what a number of kids, blokes they've got on the mat with Chris Sherrington there training as well, and Neil Rood and that lot. But I mean,
Simon.
Yes, who's
sorry,
that?
it's Ross. I think possibly would, again, this not be an opportunity to basically put it out there to the coaches and say, you know, as long as they were an experienced coach, you know, is someone willing to take on seniors as a project, basically? You know, like you've said, your concentration is on juniors. That's absolutely as it should be. But perhaps, you know, I don't want to name drop anyone, so I won't. But I think there are people who we could all think of, obviously, who would do really well with that. You know, from a Western area standpoint, give it a Western area badge and say, right, this person is now organising seniors. Because again, I appreciate what Darren says, but I'm very much the same as you. I'm completely junior focused. That's where all of my effort goes. But that, as Darren says, that is then excluding a huge area of the membership base. So find someone, put a job advert out there. You know, I know you can't do that, but, you know, put a job advert out there, you know, head of Western area senior judo, recreation, whatever it might be. And I think that would be successful if somebody did that.
Yeah, very good. I mean, I think the last senior session I did actually was with Pete Douglas, and we had a weekend in Torquay, didn't we, Pete?
Yeah, that's right. That was a good one.
Yeah, there was about six of us. I know, Adam, you had your hand up there a minute ago. So
yeah, it was just say, you know, we've got the full time lot of Bath, and we do get visitors, but I think it would just be worth saying that that's not for everyone. Like the Mondays and Thursdays, if people have been there, I'm sure you'll know, like, if you've got full-time players on the map and we've got visitors from Cambridge, Wales, Walsall coming down, that's not maybe the right level for a lot of the senior players in the area that we're not really tapping into. So I think, coming to Ross's point, I think would be well worth pursuing. Something for even just for like the amount of like regular students or just regular recreational senior judo players that just want to be a little bit more involved in the area and just get to an area event where they know there's going to be other seniors from different clubs and just have a bit of a technical session, have a bit of a pull around and a bit of a scrap. I think that'd be well worth pursuing.
Yeah, definitely, and added a social event to it as well. Always.
Oh, absolutely. Have a few shandies after.
Yeah.
I think with the seniors as well, that you can't put it in such big areas. They've got to be in smaller pods because like Adam was saying about like if you call them leisure seniors or it's great for them to train in their club, but it's also great for them to train in a bigger or go to another club. Like said, Diane White, Kylie and Mark, they're very active in bringing in players and very inviting, and they can have a session. So they're adults basically at the end of the day. So they should get their acts together and get to training where they need to be. What I personally found from seniors at our club is they've not stayed connected on WhatsApp at all during this period, but I'm sure they will return once the mats are back open. That's being honest.
Yeah, I found that with my older kids that totally disengaged with the
Sorry, could I give I guess a slight outsider's perspective? I've trained in the area, but I'm predominantly with the army. My background's been mainly Judo Scotland. This issue is, I think, across the country and certainly everywhere that I've trained with the army has had the same sort of issue, and it didn't know what to do with seniors. So I started judo at 18, and yeah, have essentially felt that nobody's really known what to do with me up until the point where I became 30, and then suddenly masters competitions were opened. As a result, I probably do more BJJ now than I do judo, because your young fit guys are predominantly now, in my experience, going to BJJ, as other people have said, and actually that's where I get the harder scraps now. And, I live within an hour of Ratho, the Judo Scotland training centre, but the hardest mats that I can find are BJJ mats just now. So there's a sort of wider point about how do you interest these players in the judo, and how do we claw some people back, because otherwise it's, from my experience, certainly going in the wrong direction. And there's not the same, I don't want to say stigma, of people who have joined as adults of BJJ, but they know what they want to do with them. They want to get money out of them, and they're very good at it.
Yeah, valid points. I think it's...
Simon, can I jump in on that one, please?
Yeah, go on, go for it.
All right. Simon, if you remember when you were in the Devon squad and I'd taken over as Devon coach, Devon was in exactly the same position. There were good players all over the place, no cohesion, no trade, nothing was happening. Now, I was only 26 years old, an inexperienced coach, but I put my time up, and then we put a good squad together and we won the Bob Taylor Trophy. So the answer is, going back to what was raised before, you just need somebody to take charge and take control and pull it together. And if they've got enthusiasm, I was a newly qualified coach. I had zero experience, but it doesn't make any difference. And it goes back to what you were saying about enthusiasm. If somebody's enthusiastic and willing to do it and put themselves out and pull it together and not be deflated when people don't turn up, because when we started, I would have a Devon County training session for seniors and we had 3 people. But by sticking at it and a bit of self-belief, we created what I think you'll agree was a good spirit and a really good senior squad in Devon. So I don't accept that we're losing people to other areas or other sports. I think it's more about somebody just needs to take the bull by the horns and crack on and get it done. Now, you're doing that with the kids. You've replicated that, and you're doing that with those kids. And what you're saying about recreational stuff for kids, if you've got 2,000 children doing judo, then you should have packed sport halls with people enjoying their sport rather than people focusing on elite sport. Now, you've got coaches there, and there's some of them on at the minute which do that, and that's fantastic as well, but it's the peak of the pyramid. So it's really just about what everybody said, is getting an adult, an individual, to have responsibility for an area, and it will all happen. It definitely will. That's just the way it works.
Good points, Gary. And it was some memorable times back in those days. I remember being chased by a dog out of Holden Forest on a run one Saturday afternoon. And Colin went round.
Can you say something about adults?
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, none of my adults are competitive players. They come along, they do their recreational judo on a Monday, and they enjoy it. Therefore, they don't need to worry about leg grab rules or defensive rules or any of this rubbish. If you're just training recreational players, let them do kata-gruma, let them do leg grabs. I think one of the problems with the latest sort of 10 years of rule changes is they've taken so much out of judo. Someone said we're losing people to BJJ because they do more than we do. They can't do standing arm locks, standing strangles are gone now. We've lost so much. If you've got competitive players, they need to train within the rules. Fully agree with that.
Yeah.
But for those of us that are running recreational classes, there's nothing wrong with them being allowed to do leg grabs, being allowed to do standing strangles, being allowed to do standing arm locks. If they do kani basami, which is banned because of safety reasons, then you may be on sticky ground. But if it's banned purely for competition rules and not for safety, try and expand the judo a little bit, give them a bit more interest than saying, can't do that anymore, you can't do that anymore, you can't do that anymore. Just a thought.
I always go to my go-to Tiguruma as a safety net when I have to. Yeah, valid
I
point.
think we need to move on now, Simon. We've got running out of time.
Yeah. Okay.
I know Gary's waiting in the sidelines to.
I just want to pick up though. Some people have put some stuff in the chat. I know Leo's put some stuff in there about the Republic of Ireland of set out some detailed information on the phase returns to judo, so that might be worth looking into for some of you. Brett, something about membership, gymnastics offer. So yeah, it's all good stuff in the chat there. So feel free to have a look. Again, finally, before I hand over to Dave, just if you've got any thoughts on what I've just said or gone, contact me. I'm really open to chat and help out or get that list of clubs together.
Yeah, just to reiterate that, just put your thoughts down in the chat. There's some really good stuff in which I didn't answer. We'll pass up the chain to the BGA and see what answers come back from them. I can't promise anything, but we're here to try and help now, so that's good. We've got the last session of the day lined up now, so a great friend of the Army Judo, Gary Turner, is going to do a quick introduction to some studies in concussion, specifically to concussion in judo. So without further ado, I'll let him introduce himself, and you'll realise the pedigree he's got. I look forward to his presentation. It should be quite a good one based on the ones he's done in the past. So no pressure there, Gary. Over to you.
Oh, come on.
Hi guys, how you doing? I hope you're really well. Really good. This is really well attended as well. Just have a look at the people who are on here. We've got 55 participants by the looks of it. John Thacker, Major Jim McKenzie, Dave, hi. My other friends, hope you're really well. So Dave, thank you very much for inviting me in here. Why am I here? I'm probably the walking example of someone who's had more head impacts than anybody else. That's me in the picture behind there. I'm the little fella. That's Bjorn Breggy from Switzerland. He's 128 kilos of solid muscle. He's putting my head down into his rising knee. Let's just say that one hurt. Dave showed me last night how to put a background screen up, and I thought, hey, let's get one that's a bit interesting. Most people would put up a hero screen. Nah, not me. I put one of me basically getting twatted. So my background is I started martial arts with judo in 1976. Career highlights have been a 13 times world champion across 3 different fight sports, which is jiu-jitsu, kickboxing and Thai boxing. I've been British champion at Wushu Kwan. I've been K1 UK champion, and judo, I was British schools judo team. I think it was 87. I'm getting old now. Can't really remember how long ago it was. In 87, I'm a second dan black belt and a lifelong member of Osaka Judo Club.
So I do love my judo. It's my origins. So that's my background. I've been connected with the army for quite some time. I've been a civilian my entire life, but lived around them. So I've got some close ties with the Army School of Physical Training, and through the noughties, through my professional fight career, I'll be basically abusing the Army School of Physical Training and their facilities, which meant I would get on the Army Judo courses and the Combined Services Judo courses. There's nothing more humbling than being on a mat with 120 Army, Navy, Air Force and Special Forces and having Gareth Maslin, Staff Sergeant Maslin, Maz, saying, okay guys, we'll reconvene at 1400 hours, and that's 2 p.m. for Gary, pointing out I'm a civvy. But because of my work, because of my fun and abuse of the Army's facilities, Pete, nice cap there by the way, because of my abuse of the Army, I was asked to do various bits of work with them. I was a subject matter expert on various things for them. I had a small role in Combat PT, which is the product the Army PTIs were rolled out with, and got involved with Army Judo, Army Boxing, and the Army Kayak team on various roles, helping them out. And I've got some good friends from the Army Judo over the years, so thanks to those guys. But yeah, my career, I've probably had over 1,000 competitive bouts across a vast variety of disciplines. So I've had a huge number of repetitive hits over my lifetime. And about 3 years ago, I was challenged on an online community to go and counter the views of a certain Professor Anderson in respect to head impacts and combat sports. I was known as the Credible Hulk rather than the Incredible Hulk online, because I back up my rage with facts and figures. So I went there and I found him incredibly engaging and very interesting with what he was saying. I gave myself 2 weeks to prove him wrong on everything. I ended up coming back onto the forum 2 weeks later and saying not only was he right with everything he was saying, he's understated it as well. Over the next 3 years, I threw myself into studies and research into traumatic brain injury and combat sports. 3 years from that date, I ended up starting my doctorate, my PhD at Winchester University in the behavioural effects of head impacts in combat sport athletes. So the person here beside you, I don't have much for brain left, because you can see from the picture behind me that I've had a few headshots over the years, but I'm a bully's worst nightmare, because I'm a geek, and I'm definitely a geek, but I'm a geek who can fight. So watch out the bullies. So today I'm going to run through a quick overview of traumatic brain injury, how useless the term concussion is, raise all of your awareness, give you some resources that you can use, which are simple and easily and effective to put in place, and help driving you forward to keep yourselves and your participants far safer. So concussion, we've all heard the term concussion, and in sport at the moment, there's a bit of a concussion crisis going on, and they're completely and utterly missing the point. Concussion as a term I hate. Concussion describes symptoms. It does not describe a brain injury. To misquote perhaps Natasha Richardson, the actress Liam Neeson's wife, she had a skiing accident. She felt okay. She had no concussion symptoms. That night she died from a subdural hematoma. She had no symptoms but had an acute and catastrophic brain injury. Therefore, I hate the term concussion for that reason. I also hate the term concussion because it's a sport-invented term. In every medical community, they don't describe it as concussion. They call it literally as what it is, a traumatic brain injury. Concussion doesn't sound quite the same as the term traumatic brain injury, but we can't get away from it. If you hear the word concussion from now on, that's a brain injury. If it's bad enough to have any symptoms, a serious brain injury has already happened. In the striking sports, how many times have you seen a boxer, kickboxer, Thai boxer, mixed martial artist suddenly have some wobbly legs? At that point in time, in every other sport, they'll be immediately removed from that playing field, and under nice guidance, they'll be immediately transferred to a hospital for an emergency CT scan. Yet how many times in these fight sports, these combat sports, do we see the fights allowed to continue? So just think about that, and bearing in mind culture is changing. What we know now, we didn't know 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Only last year, there's some key studies produced, and I'm aiming with my research to move the knowledge base further forward. So don't feel bad about the way we were in the hypermasculine sport of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and noughties. Suck it up, Buttercup. He just had his bell rung. Come on, suck it up, Buttercup. Get on, grow a set, grow a set. All of these homophobic, hyper-masculine sayings that developed during that time period. We've got this thing in the combat sports of train hard, fight easy. Unfortunately, train hard, fight easy isn't clever. We need to train clever, fight better, and fight more successful, and fight safer. So I aim, just with that statement alone, just switching concussion as a term to what it really is, traumatic brain injury, is going to help you guys big time. Because if someone's had any of the symptoms of concussion on any one of your judo mats, or if you have incurred a serious brain injury. We can't get away from that. Also, because concussion as a term describes symptoms, observable symptoms, it doesn't describe the injury itself. Every time we get a hit on the head, done that for sound effects, I like my sound effects, we are suffering a concussive impact. That force is transferred to our head. If it's hard enough, for example, a boxing punch, definitely that knee from Bjorn Breggy over my shoulder, it's serious enough to cause a brain injury, even if it doesn't give subjective symptoms that we would term concussion. So I'm going to quickly run through today in a short period of time what a traumatic brain injury is, its nature and its epidemiology of judo, where does it occur, what we can do about it, how to avoid it, and also what we can do where it happens. So, brain injury, traumatic brain injury, trauma, strike, being hit. Okay, we can have direct impact to the head. That will cause traumatic brain injury. We can also have biomechanical force transfer, forces applied to the body, which are then biomechanically transferred to the head and to the brain. You do not have to have a head impact to suffer from a traumatic brain injury. In kickboxing, Thai boxing, mixed martial arts, a kick is 4 times harder than a punch. A punch can be described as a 20-pound bowling ball swung at 23 miles an hour, to give you an idea of the force. In judo, think about the forces that your body takes as you're slammed into the mat. In particular, in competition judo, where we don't break fall because we don't want to give a nip on away. We take that impact. The forces can be transferred to our brain. It's something that has so far low-ish importance in judo research, although the acute brain injuries, the subdural hematomas, which are the serious catastrophic brain bleeds, have received a lot of study in Japan because of some catastrophic deaths that have taken place. But in general practice, we don't think about what we're doing to our brain. We just generally carry on with our judo. It's judo. We're not getting punched and kicked. Time to wake up, I feel, and start to realise the elephant in the room that's sneaking up on us. So the judo, we can get the impacts from our head striking the mat. The head whipping that takes place in rear throws, where we're taken back and the head whips backwards, can create the brain rattling inside the brain. Children in particular are more vulnerable because the head with osotogari, for example, is more likely to go back and strike the mat. We have catastrophic attempts to avoid being thrown where we get head contact to the ground. And I know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is closely affiliated with Judo now, both by way of participation and governing bodies combining. And in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there's quite a lot of concussive brain injuries caused by guard passing and striking things like knees, elbows, hips, feet, during ground grappling. So we can look to the epidemiology of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and there's quite a good correlation and crossover to Judo groundwork as well. So what actually happens with your brain? Luckily, I have a brain here. It's probably 10 times bigger than my brain, but here is my brain. What I actually have here is a water balloon suspended in a jar. In that jar, I've got a small bit of fluid, cerebrospinal fluid, and it's suspended from the top of the jar. So what this represents is a brain inside your head. We've got the skull, which is the jar itself, and then we've got the brain sitting in there with fluid. And basically what happens, if we have movement in the body, the brain moves. If the brain moves violently, that sounds horrible, but you can hear that brain sloshing and slopping against the skull itself. Not only that, if we twist it, I don't think we can see it with our background, if we twist it, we get rotational movements on that brain as well, which is rotationary forces inside that brain. Also, we can have impact. As I hold it, we have impact. If I hit the end, the brain moves. The harder I impact it, the more the brain moves. If I whip it with Osoto Gary, see if I can get it on screen without disappearing, we get like a bang and a slop taking place. Hopefully, that's given you an idea of what's happening inside your brain. So over my fight career, where I would spar, I don't know, 30, 40 rounds a week, receiving 15 to 20 head impacts per round, that's a lot of this going on inside the brain. Every time the brain gets an injury, or so it gets an impact, it's sloshing. It is causing damage, even in the absence of the subjective, observable clinical symptoms that take place with concussion. And I've got another prop here for you to show you what happens on the inside. Good old spaghetti. Always have spaghetti if you're doing a brain injury seminar. So these lines of spaghetti, think of these lines of spaghetti as being structures of the brain, neuronal structures, if you will, to grossly simplify what happens in the brain. Now, when we have an impact and that brain sloshes and moves, you can think of it as like wringing spaghetti. If you wring it a little bit, they may not break, but they'll weaken. They also, if there are tubes filled with fluid, might start to perforate and release metabolites, chemicals inside the brain. If I twist it more, a few might start to break. If I get slammed by Dave Campy, MBE, awesome Osoto Gary, and I'm caught by surprise, and my head whips back and hits the brain, you can think of that as twisting the spaghetti. And obviously, that is not going to end well for the brain structures inside. Now, we've got a concussion threshold. There's this elusive concussion threshold that studies are trying to reach, and they're missing the point. And it's been pointed out by a recent study that came out in, I think it was January this year, which shows that it's not the actual magnitude of the hit that counts, nor is it the number of hits that counts. It's the number and magnitude of strikes. Think of it like we've got a power bar in our brain of damage limitation. We have a little hit on the brain and the power bar might deplete a little bit, like in a power bar in a game. And it will replenish slightly, but never reach its full power again. If we get a big hit, that huge Osoto Gary from Dave Camping, bam, Gary's head goes back on the mat, boom. It might lower that power bar really quickly. And again, it will recover slightly, but never quite reach its full capacity. So the number of hits, if they're small, it will go down slowly. If it's big, bam, they might deplete quickly. We've only got so many hits that we can take before we start having the subjective experiences of it. Now, many people in the fight industry say, yeah, but Gary, I feel fine. I've been hit and I feel fine. I'm working completely okay. Well, this is what's going to happen in your brain. I've got 3 strands here of spaghetti. Now, imagine that these 3 strands are bridges over a river, and you want to go from one side to the other side, and there's an earthquake. As you have an earthquake, the first bridge breaks. Now you can't travel over it. Now you can still get to the other side. You've just got to go a little bit further up and along the next bridge to go off. But then there might be another earthquake, and the next bridge goes. Now you can still get from one side to the other side, but now you've got to go even further to go around it to get to where you want to be, the other side. And of course, if that one goes, I've got to clear all this up later. If this one goes, then you're not going to get to your destination. And this is what's happening in the brain. We're eating into something called our cognitive buffer, our number of bridges. So every time you get thrown into the ground, you might be starting to damage and break down these bridges. And when you've got something that's already weakened with damage, it is more likely then to break and suffer the catastrophic breakage, making it go further. What this is doing is slowing your cognitive abilities. It's impairing your ability to learn, to store and access memories. And most importantly, perhaps, well, it's your entire sensation, perception, and action. Performance in sport relies on the correct response to stimulus. Every time you get hit in your head, every time you get biomechanical force transfer causing injuries to your head, it is lowering your ability to appropriately respond to stimulus. It is affecting your input of sensation, how you then perceive it, and how you then act, including motor neuron control. Which is why, if you've had a concussion, you're more likely to suffer from more and more catastrophic musculoskeletal injuries in your career. You have less control on your body. So all this is happening in the background, okay? So basically what's happening is these injuries will slow your ability to think. You think that, you know, it's going to take one hell of a lot. Recently this year, a study was released from Stirling University, which showed 3 rounds of boxing sparring lowers your cognitive ability, lowers your memory capabilities, and lowers your motor neuron control. 3 rounds of boxing sparring, 7 to 10 hits per round, I think they received. 3 rounds, and those effects lasted for 48 hours. None of them had the subjective effects of concussion, the headaches and all those things, the dizziness and that such thing. There was no observable symptoms as such, but under testing, the brain injury can be detected. And it didn't revert for up to 48 hours. And again, that is not the repair of that injury, it's a rerouting around that injury. Another study, and my scholarly team been involved in the FA banning football headers for under 12s, because it's horrendous for children. 6 headers of a football creates the same. Now think of how many times, especially us older generation, have been slammed into mats over our careers. I wonder what we've been doing to our brains. Perhaps it's trying to stop training hard and instead start training clever. Because what happens is we have acute effects, we have subacute effects, we have chronic effects and late effects as we go through the timeline. The acute effects that might take place might be subclinical, as I've said, the reduction in learning, the reduction in motor neuron control, the ability to control our bodies, the reduction in cognition, sensation, perception, action. It might just be slowing us down a little bit in our daily, day-to-day life. They might lead to the acute symptoms, which are the symptoms of concussion, headaches, dizziness, grogginess, fear of lights, aversion to lights and loud noises, slurred speech, eye movement differences, memory issues and such like. These may persist. The concussion symptoms may persist and revert into post-concussion syndrome, also known as persistent concussion symptoms. Around 18% of those who suffer a concussion are still suffering the symptoms 1 year on. For a small proportion of those, they never ever leave. They end up living with the effects of a traumatic brain injury. Bear that in mind. So we've got the subacute effects that take place. Also, we have the mood effects. The nature of the head impacts and the areas of the brain which are particularly under threat include, for us, the brainstem control and helping us coordinate our motor neuron control, the hippocampus, helping us with our memory, the hypothalamus, helping us regulate homeostasis, the balance of our body overall, and also the prefrontal cortex, where we, the source of consciousness, to grossly misrepresent it, our impulse control and such like. We're more likely to suffer from mood effects like depression, anxiety, aggression, and aggression has been a regularly reported symptom from sport. Aggression is an action, not an intent. Aggression doesn't mean to say that you are angry. It can come with angry, but it doesn't mean to say you're angry. For example, a sports team or judo player can compete aggressively with lots and lots and lots of attacks. They're just trying to win. There's not anger there. However, if you're prone to anger and aggression is increased, you can see it spilling over into day-to-day life. Aggression, think of it like you're driving a car and you go over a rock and you carry on driving, everything appears to be fine until you go to put your foot on the brake and suddenly you realize you can't actually stop. The brakes are off, okay? It leads to more impulsive behavior, which cross-references through life. A Swedish study of around 13,000 twins studied over a lifetime showed the twins who had a concussion achieved worse life outcomes over a whole range of markers, including all-cause mortality. One concussion, you're more likely to die earlier. And part of the reasons is, when you've got that spaghetti, when you've got that line of spaghetti, that structure in the brain, and it perforates or breaks, the insides start to spill out in the brain. And this creates this entire neurometabolic cascade of effects as there's this battle going on between repair, the inflammation responses, cells are starting to die, connections are starting to reroute. So between repair and injury. But it has lasting effects that we don't clear, including deposition of things called tau proteins and beta amyloids. These are what lead to the the late effects of traumatic brain injury, which are the earlier and more rapid onset and development of the chronic diseases like dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinsonism, ALS, other motor neuron diseases. It's not looking good. And also, of course, the buzzword of the moment, which I think is a misdirection, of CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or for the British audience, encephalopathy. Chronic is long-term, traumatic, head impacts again, encephalopathy, or encephalopathy if you're English, is brain decay, a disease of the brain. And these are what's been found in American football players and various boxers. And they're now starting to, my scholarly team, in fact, I've just come back from Florida carrying out more interviews to help develop traumatic encephalopathy syndrome, the collection of behaviours associated, because at the moment it can only be diagnosed through dissecting a brain and dyeing it after you've died. So CT is a bit of a diversion because you've noticed all the other problems that are associated with concussion as well. I recently did a judo podcast and we started talking about brain injuries and suicide. And of course, I wasn't personally friends with him, but obviously I've known our high-standing member of the judo community who passed last year. It's quite moving actually talking about it, and in fact, it gets me a little bit now. Did concussion play a part? In suicides, on average, you've got 8 minutes from decision to action through interviews with those who've actually survived it. With a decrease in impulse control, it's more likely to be a far more rapid timescale. So, you know, there's serious impacts here. I'm actually downplaying this because I love my combat sports. So don't think of me as a bad guy. Think of me as a guy that's going to try and save the sports, because it's kicking off in all sports. If you've not had a concussion protocol in place since 2009, you're likely to suffer the cascade that's about to happen of court cases. Now, British Judo Association have got a concussion or a minor head injury protocol in place, and I'm seeking to update it. And I'll come back to that in a moment. Luckily, you guys are protected from that, but you do need to take personal responsibility for both your actions, the actions of your coaches, the medical staff at events, and also the way that you run your sessions. So we've got a risk. We've got a risk of traumatic brain injury. And in any risk management, the first thing to do is remove the risk. We can't really with judo. What we can do is mitigate it. Fortunately, judo does not have that many traumatic brain injuries compared to other traumatic combat sports. Compared to other combat sports. However, it does have a good number, and there are quite a fair number of acute brain injuries that are catastrophic, subdural hematomas and such like, particularly in Japan, where obviously there's far more participants than perhaps in other countries. So what we need to do is limit the impact to our brains. The first thing is we've got to learn to break fall correctly in training, in particular with children. The reason being is that a child's head at the age of around 9 or 10 is 90% of its adult size, but its body is far smaller. In other words, it's got one heck of a weight that's wobbling that's got to try and control. The neck strength isn't there. So you've got to have particular attention to your child participants to ensure, one, they know how to break fall and continuous and correct break fall practice. Remember, practice does not make perfect. Deliberate practice, getting things right, makes perfect. The army saying of, what is it, perfect practice prevents piss poor performance, or whatever the saying is. Dave will correct me hopefully later. We need to pay attention to deliberate practice to get those breakfalls right. We need to limit the impacts that these children are getting, in particular to the mat, let alone us in older life. Children are just more susceptible to it because of their developing brain and bodies. We need to ensure that these throws are done onto surfaces that are appropriate for the throw to take place. Some studies are starting to show an undermat and sprung floors below the judo mats can actually help resist in particular the acute injuries. However, one of the things to do, if you get a balloon full of water and stick it in a little jar with a little bit of water, a couple of tablespoons of water in, suspend it to slop. And studies show quite nicely that if I put a cushion against it and hit, the brain actually wobbles more. The reason being is through something called compliance. A sharp hit has high compliance, high rate of force transfer, which means that the brain, so the skull, in which the brain sits, transfers a lot of the force, which is where you can get, the skull basically is designed to protect your brain from suffering injury. Yet, when you've got a cushion in front of it and then hit, and more vibration goes through to the brain, the reason is because there's low compliance, a low rate of force transfer, which means less of it gets dissipated around the brain, the external structure, and more of it passes in a diffuse way to cover more of the brain. It's one of the main reasons why headgear actually in boxing makes brain injuries worse, and larger gloves in boxing actually make brain injuries worse as well. They increase the concussive nature of it. Counterintuitive until you actually look at biomechanics behind it and test things. Remember, what we think may be true may not be true until we test it. We've all got a cognitive biases, we've got a cognitive dissonance, and in sport we tend to do what we do because our coaches have taught this way. We can all always be better. What are we not paying attention to, and what can we do to make things better in the future? Now, the only thing that we can do apart from these practices to improve our ability to resist brain injury is to, I'll speed things up, increase our neck strength. It means we've got more control on our heads. Now, one of the things that we need to do is manage concussions a lot more. I'm just going to attach a file to the I'm trying to find it, the chat, which will help you. I will find it in a moment and attach it to this, which is the Concussion in Sport Consensus Group, CRT5, Concussion Recognition Tool 5. It is a brilliant, I can't find it, I'll get it to Dave and we'll get it transferred in a moment. It's a concussion recognition tool for sport, the CRT5. It's designed for non-medical staff to actually pay attention to what's going on the judo mat and recognize brain injuries. It reiterates to you guys the danger response, airway, breathing, circulation of first aid. It gives you the red flags where you should immediate, without hesitation, transfer person to hospital, and you can also insist on a CT scan according to NICE guidance. The red flags, things like loss of consciousness and worsening of the symptoms. It's got the observable signs for you to actually recognize the symptoms, the post-concussion symptoms, and what to do about it. In other words, refer to an appropriately trained medical practitioner. Oh, lovely, thanks. The CRT5 has just arrived. Please download that, circulate that, and get that around. That's now in the notes on the side. CJC, SAE, thank you very much for bailing me out there. If you're a medical practitioner, get the SCAT5, because that's the version designed for medical professionals to use for sideline assessments. But that helps you recognize it. Now, after this, we've got a responsibility to manage both ourselves with that brain injury and our pupils, our students, our clients, our friends, our family. Us guys in judo need to look after itself. Judo has a concussion protocol, a minor head injury protocol that you can find on Sport. I believe it is not up to date, and I've entered into communication with BJA, constructively given suggestions to improve it and bring it up to Sport. If you follow the BJA guidance, you've basically got your backsides covered quite nicely. However, I would suggest you look at the Consensus in Sport, the CISG consensus statement for concussion in sport, which is an international consensus for how to deal with concussion in sport. Basically, the initial response to a concussive injury is between 24 and 48 hours of complete rest, complete physical and complete mental rest. No screens, no watching TV, darkened room, sleep, 24, 48 hours. That gives your brain an opportunity to go into the hibernatory state, where it's going to help that repair take place best as possible. In the judo protocol, it's 7 days. However, a slower return to daily activities, movement, slightly increasing the cognition through that first period has been shown to be most beneficial, only at a rate and pace where the subjective symptoms do not increase. From there, you need a gradual return to school, a gradual return to work, a gradual return to physical activity, long before you have a gradual return to sport. You need to increase your activities only at a rate and a pace where the symptoms are continuing to subside. If they stay the same or indeed start to increase, then seek the advice of a suitably trained and appropriate medical practitioner. Again, the British Judo Association has the concussion, the minor head injury protocol. I urge you to, they've got a couple of words like you should. I'm saying must. Change those words to must. You've got to pay attention to this. You've got to keep yourself and your clients safe. I would, however, refer you to the concussion in sports consensus statement. And actually follow their guidance because it's up to date. It's the latest, most universal one at the moment. That is due for review this year and is likely to be published, a new version of it next year. Studies into traumatic brain injury are increasing at a really rapid rate. It's geometric in research that's coming through. So please keep current. We are incurring brain injuries. The lack of knowledge means that the lack of reporting, the lack of medical referrals is really, really small in judo. We need to do better. Although it's nowhere near as bad. I've got to give you this anecdote before I finish for questions. Boxing, it's downright scary. If you go to the British Boxing Board of Control website, top right is a little click on which says Boxing the Facts. Click on that. 3/4 of the way down, you'll see a statement that says that schoolboy and amateur boxing is safe and there is no evidence of brain injuries for participants. Really? People have bloody well died in amateur and schoolboy boxing. If you've seen anyone with their legs wobbling, that's a serious traumatic brain injury. In any other sport, as I said, straight off the field of play, straight to hospital, CT scan. Under nice guidance for when you need a CT scan. Anything where the legs even wobble, straight away, CT scan, because it might be hiding the more dangerous signs of a subdural hematoma behind it. And if you consider that it's okay to continue with a concussion, your brain, if you're continuing with a concussion until it's completely recovered in accordance with these protocols and cleared by an appropriate medical practitioner, your brain is not ready for a second impact. It is already weak. You may suffer the rare, but it happens, catastrophic brain failure of the second impact syndrome, where you'll have basically within a few minutes your respiratory and cardiovascular systems shut down and you die. That's from a little concussion. The classic case was a poor lad who died during rugby, carried on with a concussion, was playing all right until he had a second hit. Even the air ambulance didn't get there in time, the poor guy passed. So please take this serious. Hopefully, please bear in mind that I've been conservative with what I've been saying. I don't want to scare you too much, but hopefully it's given you a bit of a wake-up call. Carry that CRT5 with you, load it in your phones, distribute it. It's a great protocol to follow for being in the field. Always refer to medical practitioners if you're unsure in the slightest. And you can see that picture behind. Let's just limit that going on inside your heads. Okay, guys, field any questions you may have. Off you go.
Hi, Gary.
Hi.
John Thacker.
Hey, John.
Hello, mate. I've been watching with some interest.
Hi.
I've been watching with some interest many of your comments you've been making over the last year really into this, and I can see you've kind of done lots and lots of research in it. But in one way, it seems a bit of a conflict because typically looking at the picture behind, you've had many, many injuries. And, you know, looking at you here, you don't seem to be kind of have any after effects at all. So would you say you've got after effects?
I know I've got after effects. The first thing is it's always compared to what? Yeah, what would I have been? I might have sold Brexit. I don't know. No one could do that. But it's always compared to what? What was my brain like? You know, what would my brain have been like if I hadn't have gone through all of these impacts? Yet, the one thing that can but help us not see the symptoms is to have a high cognitive buffer. to have a high number of connections. Do you remember the bridges? We can have a heck of a lot of bridges over over that river, which means that I've got a lot more bridges to break before I get over. I'm lucky that out of the 70 odd risk factors for incurring more catastrophic events from and more catastrophic results from traumatic brain injuries, I'm probably just genetically unlucky in that way, but also because I use my body physically and use my body, basically my PhD might be protective of my brain. It's not going to stop the decay. It just gives me that higher place to fall from. Also, these late effects, the chronic traumatic encephalopathy, the CTE, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, they generally don't kick in until after you're 50. I'm not 50 until September. I'm not looking to turning 50 because, when's it going to happen? So do I regret my sports career? Hell no. I love it. Yeah. We didn't know different back then. But would I do what I did, if I had my time again, knowing what I knew now, would I? No. I probably would have stuck at judo, because this to say that we don't get as many hits to the head as we do in kickboxing, Thai boxing, and mixed martial arts. But we still have to pay consideration to it. We still need to pay attention to it.
Okay, thank you.
Gary.
Hi.
Gary, yeah, it's Ross Taylor. I'm a big fan, by the way. I remember you told me about your involvement with Mike Tyson and Bob Sapp in Japan.
Oh, that was fun. No, Vegas. That was in Bellagio. Vegas.
Just a quick one. I've read up on a lot of the stuff Christopher Nowinski has done in the US. Yeah. He's done a lot on brain trauma, and especially following the tragic Chris Benoit murder-suicide. And I think from everything I've read, that seems, a lot of people said that seems the most likely reason that potentially there was that happened. So my question is, do you want to see a ban on striking sports? World boxing. I've seen you comment on, when Eddie Hearn has put things out there, and so, I've seen you say this needs to be at ringside, this needs to be done. But ideally, would you want to see boxing banned? Because no.
I love it. No, backtrack very quickly. Chris Lewinsky is part of the Boston Brain Bank, the work of Anne McKee, who's leading that team there. And my team, my scholarly team, are working with them. And a load of them went over to, I've been doing the dog work, doing the transcriptions for it, interviewing a lot of the family of these unfortunate people who've passed, who've been diagnosed with CTE. So I know Chris's worked really, really well. He's a top guy. Boston Brain Bank, the Professional Fighters Brain Health Study in Las Vegas as well, is another big one. So they're on top of the ball. Now, one of the things I need to say is that every disease is a complex interplay between an organism and how it moves through its environment. There are always comorbidities. So, for example, if someone's suffering dementia, it's not just a hit to the head that's going to cause dementia. It's going to be one of the contributory factors to it, perhaps. So we can't talk in terms of absolutes. There's always confounding things to it. But yeah, there is, there are huge correlations to these behaviours taking place from people who've had repetitive head impacts, which is quite scary. My personal things in respect to the combat sports is my personal belief was that we should stop all head contact for those under 16. The reason being is, by all definitions, it is actually child abuse, which is quite shocking. And we all, none of us condone child abuse, yet under physical neglect and emotional through the Child Protection in Sport Unit, CPSU of the NSPCC, through their definitions, it is child abuse. And I'm in talks with those guys at the moment as well. So I want to remove the head impacts from children. It is so deleterious to a child's health. You can't say, but my child wants to do it, because a man can't even spank another man, according to the case law, and leave a weld on the man's bum, to quote some quite shocking case law there. So there's only so much that we can do. There's certain body modifications we're not allowed to do. Even a child cannot get a tattoo for these reasons. There's something called Gillick and Fraser competence, Not quite the same thing, but that's a child can refuse medical treatment, but it doesn't mean to say that they can consent to harm. A child, and the legal definition of child is under 18 in the UK, and in fact, under the UN rights for a child is under 18. A child cannot consent to harm. That's why in the army, a child can join the army at 16 but can't serve frontline until 18. Dave, is that correct, perhaps? Yeah. It's under that legislation. Children are also developmentally not able to make a decision for themselves that's rational and see the long-term consequences of it. Their brains aren't in place. So personally, I want remove head impacts for children under the age of 18. That will not affect sports. I've been looking into the research into crossing over from child to adult, and sport specificity is less than sport variety. And it's possible, if you've had a good sports sampling, as it's known, the variety of sports, to cross over to be an elite level in 1 year. So there are methods at place. If we train clever, we can do the crossover quite nicely to adults. Adults, all I want to do is raise awareness so people have the information so they can make an informed decision to participate or not. And you know something, those that want to do, like one hell of a lot of my friends and peers, I want to make them as safe as possible.
Sure.
So it does mean in changing certain rule structures, but most importantly, it's the medical practitioners and medical knowledge and medical attention, both in training and in competition, and to remove the stupid apathy that we've got of fight sports. For example, the British Boxing Board of Control. Lucky they've got zero money behind them because they're going to be finished really, really quickly. And it's quite concerning. Yeah, I'm still gobsmacked that the amount of times I've called them out over the past 2 years, and they know about it. They've still got it on their website. You know, but the official body saying they've got no brain damage.
Yeah, I've seen many of your comments, and I think, you know, most people who are involved in judo tend to be fans of combat sports. You know, I love boxing, and
me too.
I completely agree. So what you're saying basically is that you want to change the thinking around the sport, not the sports themselves. So basically, just, I mean, it is a fascinating subject, and I think, you know, especially if you do follow boxing, we've seen, I think, the last 2 years there's been multiple deaths and multiple
4 last year, 4 2019.
Yeah,
all from traumatic brain injury.
And it is something. I mean, I've been at competition myself where you can see someone has had, as I said, I won't use concussion, I'll use the term head trauma, and you know, they're completely out of it. And you know, we have to say, we don't want to see you for 2 weeks, you know, and that's hard, you know, to say that.
The thing for 2 weeks, it's not just 2 weeks. 24 to 48 hours of complete rest. Sure. Then return over that next week to normal duties. You know, normally move around the house. There's a graduated return to school or work, for example, to get on with that person's life. Then you've got the gradual increase of cardiovascular fitness, raising it level to mild, moderate levels to check you're symptom free before you start pushing it a little bit with things under your control, long before we get to interactive sport, to check the symptoms are still continuing to subside and not reappearing and getting worse, long before we return to sport specific drills, which may just be a set of elastic bands and doing uchi-komi, where we're getting used to the environment of our sport, long before we do very light, very controlled with experienced people, randori and such like, long before we're cleared by medical practitioner to actually participate in full training. And this is part of the problem that we've got in sports, because people think that if we take this time off sports, we're going to lose our ability. But the problem is, you've suffered that injury. You know, to quote the hypermasculine nature of sport, yeah, suck it up, buttercup.
Yeah.
You've got to deal with it because you've got to accept it, commit to recovery, and let's move forward clever. Let's make the best of this. Sure. Let's get things right. Because if you go back too early, your performance is suffering. You're more likely to suffer an injury, particularly of a musculoskeletal kind. In judo, those that have suffered musculoskeletal injuries, quite a lot of them, around 40–50% in a recent survey, did not return to competition at the same level, and some did not return to competition at all. So in other words, if you're not protecting yourself and you're not allowing yourself to return to full fitness before you go back to compete, you might actually be ending your career anyway. Your performance is going to be suffering in training and competition. This is before we're looking at outside of sport and the long-term effects in later life. So as part of my doctorate, the research that I'm actually doing is on looking at the immediate effects of subclinical effects of these brain traumas, and I'm using it with in sports. And what I'm demonstrating, the whole in the thesis and in the papers that I'll be producing, the whole focus is on performance. I'm generally not mentioning brain injury itself. Generally not mentioning brain injury itself as such, because fighters, don't really care about late consequences of it. They just worry about performance. So you can show them and demonstrate that they've got a loss of performance, so to react. The sensation, perception, resultant action is slacking. They need to pay attention because it's very good to maintain elite performance, and then it's going to get through to a lot more often.
Sure. I could talk about it all day. It is a really fascinating and very important subject. And all I can say is I do hope you lobby the BJA that they might put out some coaching training results, because again, it's a reval over.
Yeah, respect to the BJA, they're actually really, really good because they've actually got a program in place, and it's not too shabby. It just can be better. And it misses some areas, for example, knowledge transfer, educating the players a lot more, educating, changing the culture of sport and driving it through. But BJA are actually really, really good with it. I was really, really pleased to see it because it wasn't too shabby. It's just a little bit outdated. It doesn't reflect the 2016 consensus and sports statement completely, for example, and research moves on since then. The 2016 statement also references that research is continuing at a geometric rate and needs to be updated regularly as we go on. And that's just the BJA's got one. It's good. It doesn't cover every area. For example, has your the concussion mechanism tool will help you with that. It doesn't cover the subconcussive nature of it, the head impacts, repetitive impacts that don't cause symptoms, for example. Doesn't cover the knowledge transfer, the educational side as well as it should. So it's really, really good. I was really pleased when I saw it, but at the same time, it's like, you can do better. You can do better. I've always. I'm lucky that my mentors, including some of you guys there today, and the people with Army Judo especially, they've taught me. We can all always be better. What we're not paying attention to, and what can we do better in the future. So don't hold on to your beliefs and don't protect everything. Hey, let's all move forward safer, happier, and healthier. And we're going to quite nicely move around the concussion crisis in sport. And trust me, there's some class actions happening because my scholarly team are providing technical information for lawyers on this. A particular one in London says within the next 2 years, we're going to start seeing concussion litigation in the UK, and it's going to accelerate rapidly. And some sports, NFL, over 5,000 settled multi-million out-of-court settlements with respect to concussion alone. Bear that in mind.
Just a matter of time. Really interesting. We could have spent all day on this. It's really informative, and thanks for your time and coming to this for us, Gary.
Pleasure.
People have been putting a lot of stuff on chat, some questions. We'll make sure we take a screenshot of that, and if you can maybe come back to us at a later time with answering those questions. But I think, Simon, if you just want to quickly wrap up, I've got a few words to say at the end. If you want any more points, Simon, you need your mic on, Si. Get your mic on.
I'm able to. I've recorded this, so I will eventually download it and upload it to the Western Area YouTube channel. I have saved the chat file, so all that is saved. Now there has been some extra questions in there for Gary, and then we can maybe put some feedback later in the next coming days on the Facebook page. For me, it's been a great success. I think it's been probably a way forward for coaching chat. I've got a few ideas. Thanks for joining us. I've got most people's names, as long as I've got a full name. I've sent a couple of names, but obviously BJ will revalidate as long as I give them a full name and license number. I'm not sure about the license numbers because I think they can find them out as well. But if you have got your name on screen and it just says like, I don't know, just click on somebody. There's no one actually. Donna, I know Donna. She's just put Donna, so I know that's Donna Riggs, but I will try and work that out. But just try and say the name properly, and then I can make sure BJ gets that. But for me, I think from a chat, I was particularly interested about the concussion stuff. We've been aboard a couple of times with the team and had some close shaves, shall we say. So,
thanks for hanging in, everyone. Thanks for engaging today. It's in lockdown. The majority of us, Judo volunteers, engaged with another sport, and I urge you to continue to work with the Murphy and to increase the I was going to recap on some of the points mentioned, but conscious of time, I'd just like to say thank you to all those who presented today, put some effort into this. Special thanks to Simon pulling it all together. Thanks to Jim Crompton and the Army Judo Association for putting this event. If I make one plug for the civilians out there who may be thinking of joining the reserves, there's money in it, you can get paid to do judo. We'd love to have you get a decent stand that. We've also got Hayes on from the Sun area, runs a Scorpion Judo Club. She's 12 weeks keen. If you want to get anybody, so she's 2 weeks ago now. We've been talking with Yanni on how we do the cross area, so well, which we did. We mentioned that improving communication, that's what it's all about, taking all points on board. I can't promise the world, but I will try my best to address those points, and we will produce a short report between me and Simon, send a relevant point up to the for the things we can't answer today. If you can read back on the seminar, we'll keep the line open for 10 minutes. Just what sports I'm on chat you could. If you want to know, just send it on to myself or Simon, and we'll keep it that way. Simon, as he says, captured the group chat. And just to finish off, remember that this is a revalidation event. It doesn't mean our podcast opens, you've got to wait the DBA, see Thursday, anything else in date. And again, I'll put some information out, we can do that safeguarding course we've read online. And a final point, you've got to get a bit of a Judo, and you said, nothing will just be greater than nation. By educating one person, sending it to the science generation, make a contribution, extending 100 generations to come. So again, thanks for everything, thanks for joining, thanks for your patience. Unless there's anything else, we will keep the session open, but have a great day and enjoy the rest of the bank holiday. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Feel free to join us again Tuesday on Zoom.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Unmute yourselves, Snapchat. Bye. Bye, everyone. The future is Zoom.
Yeah. So you're going to keep this open for a few minutes. I'm just
I'll let people put questions in, and apparently I can just press on this and it saves the file, so I can then put it in a file. I don't want to shut everything down yet and lose anything, and it takes quite a while to convert to video format as well, so I'll have to stay here for about an hour yet anyway. So I've got an Ergo. Going to go on the Ergo.
Video as well. You can also copy the entire chat and capture it that way.
Possibly, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm not completely screwed up, but I'll save it, copy it, and sort something out. Don't worry.
But that worked really well, and I really, really, really appreciated that. That was brilliant.
Oh no, it was great. It was just we're just finding ways to keep things ticking over. Really, it's just
Lots of food for thought of how to get the because our judo club's gone into stasis really.
Lots of clubs have. I mean, you've got to be slightly brave to want to do the Zoom stuff anyway, and then a little bit confident in your ability to deliver it.
Yeah.
But I think you just got to be conscious that camera position on the screen where you are. I found personally, from only feedback, when I do my sessions here, so on the mat area here, I bought a tripod, so that worked. And I found if I was facing it, didn't really work. I found better when I had my back to the audience and they were seeing the correct leg movements by looking at me in a straight angle, rather than you're doing here and they get their left and right all mixed up. So I found turning my back, and then that was one of the things I found helpful.
One of the big problems I've got no judo club, no mats, because it's all in a leisure centre. They're all sitting in a cupboard.
Yeah, which is why I want to put this thing together where people can go to other groups and feel free to be welcomed in, to joining in. You know, it helps. You've got to keep that engaged, otherwise you're going to come back to clubs in
the fact that there are sessions going on.
Yeah, I mean, you got to feel sorry for the clubs in schools, because schools are going to be really wary about who they let into their premises in the evening and at weekends, because they have to employ so many extra cleaners to do this deep cleaning every day. We're talking about when a kid goes to school next week for a reception class. My partner's a reception class teacher. Every time they pick up an item and play with it 10 minutes, that item then goes in the washing machine with Milton disinfectant. You know, it's just so many books out a day. It's just, I mean, think of a club coming into a sports a school building in the evening, 20 or 30 people coming in.
It's a lot of effort as well, isn't it?
I don't know how the schools, it'll be the last thing schools do is like start having lets in again.
Yeah.
Not this year. We've cancelled all our lets. All our lets are not off the books now until, nothing's happening until September, that's for certain. And then I can't see us letting the lets in until, I just don't know.
So, I mean,
slightly different basis, maybe.
I don't know why we think we're going to get back this year, to be honest. I think until there is a vaccine that's proven to work, and I don't think there'll be the confidence there. I think if we got back earlier, people might press to get back earlier, and that's coaches and that's players as well.